Breaking news!
You really want to go down into Cthulhu's butthole.
When you see people happily, shamelessly doing the Macarena.
This is like you're rebelling against Star Wars by wearing a Darth Vader costume.
It's like the whole thing, it's this incredible combination of personal autonomy, self-expression, going outside of default reality, mixed in with like shudder-inducing bacchanalian Hieronymus Bosch style fucking at convention centers. That led me to furry porn. You just study the swing dance kids and you'll know why Hitler rose to power. We'll say the right is demonic. The people on the right will certainly say the left is demonic. That got me thinking. Possession.
Maybe Americans are just demonic.
DJ Uncle Sam has dropped a new beat.
Oh, hello there. Today's sponsor is me. I don't have corporate sponsors, never have, probably never will. This video is brought to you by the new version of the ADEPT Initiative 1 and 2. Yes, we are launching an incredible experience that's going to go for the first 4 months of 2025. We're going to form an incredible magical community and learn the secrets of magic and yoga and everything that you need to master not just the physical world, not just your body, your finances, your mind, but also the magical world. Everything you need to master the astral plane. We're going to be going into the Kabbalah, the Sephiroth, the paths, and not just intellectual learning, we're going to do it. We're going to trip the like fantastic and go through the entire magical universe together in real time. It's going to be great. Check it out. The page is up. It's adept.magick.me. It's a completely new version, adept.magick.me. Please join us, and I will see you in class.
Thank you. It took a long time to get. It's not easy to get type 2. Like, you have to really dedicate yourself to eating Skittles.
Oh, man.
Focus. Expensive, too.
So are you, how's that going for you now? Everyone's on Ozempic now. I'm not, but I was on ketamine and lost like 80 pounds. But that was for depression treatment.
Lovely ketamine. I miss those days. Well, because like I'm on it for like what it was used for originally. The problem with me getting on it is like I don't really want to lose weight, and the way it works is it activates, what are they, peptides, that it's basically when you eat, chemicals are released that make you not hungry. And so somehow it's doing that, which triggers insulin.
Okay.
And so that's what gets your blood sugar down. But because of that, I'm not hungry. So now I have to like make myself eat. So like I have to like, you know what I mean? You have to, even though you will eat half of a burrito or whatever and be like, okay, I am totally full. And so you have to like power through and eat the rest or you'll lose weight. And I don't want to lose weight. But it's amazing. I just saw Sanjay Gupta talking about it on CNN. And he was saying it's fascinating because it is showing that obesity is a disease of the mind. That it's actually a neurological condition.
Wait, how so? Because
theoretically people who are overeating because either those peptides aren't releasing, like they're not getting the signal you're full.
Oh, it's like literally like a neurological thing, not just like a willpower.
No, they're fucking hungry. They want to eat because they like a normal person eats and you're full. And you think that's because you ate the food. Ozempic shows you no, that's not because you ate the food. It's because these peptides or whatever it is are telling your brain you're full.
Oh, so like you eat when you're on Ozempic and you don't feel full.
On Ozempic, you eat and you feel very full right away. Very full. Okay. Because your brain is already like, I guess we ate. I don't remember eating. But then you eat and now the thing you were looking for, which is like, I guess you had trained yourself to like release those peptides according to however much you eat. It's happening. I guess, I don't know. And I'm not even sure it's called, I can't remember what it's called. But it's really curious. It's a curious thing because it doesn't just do that. A lot of people report not wanting to drink as much. a lot of like addictive behaviors kind of go out the window too, which is curious.
That also makes you wonder, what are we consuming in our diet that is causing those addiction pathways?
Yeah,
You
man.
know, not to go full RFK Jr., but
Go
yeah,
ahead.
maybe we should take the corn syrup out of things. You know?
Absolutely. Are you
Yeah,
fucking
things like that. I mean, God knows what they're putting in. Like you mentioned Skittles. It's like, I'm sure that there are tons of compounds in our food that are meant to be addictive.
well, I mean, there are foods that you can buy at the grocery store that would be illegal in Europe because they're like,
Oh yeah.
that's poison. So in America, that regulation hasn't happened, particularly in the dyes. Everyone knows about the dyes. Like the idea was your kid eats sugar, he goes insane. It's not the sugar. A lot of these dyes, they change like hormonally. They have a huge systemic impact that has nothing to do with sugar. It's the dyes.
But
That's
they've
what
got to know this because I'm sure they have to do lots of studies and things like that to get that through. So they have to know that.
they do.
And one thing that I learned that is, you know, that if you really want to go down into Cthulhu's butthole, look,
Always.
looking at just how food policy is made in America is really shocking. It's like there's a revolving door between like the head of the FDA and the head of Monsanto that goes back and forth, and Archer Daniels Midland and things like that.
Yeah.
And all the, like you were saying, the thing about things that are illegal in Europe. The reason that all that stuff, or excuse me, that it's illegal to label certain foods in America in ways that it would be legal in Europe, for instance, it was for a while you couldn't label something as either GMO or non-GMO. And the reason is because our food system is completely taken over by lobbyists.
There you go.
And that's it. That's all it is. So.
You know, this is the thing. Like, obviously, I love the idea of term limits when it comes to politicians. But the negative side of term limits when it comes to politicians is that it's going to inspire more kowtowing to corpos because, if there's a term limit, you're out in however many years, you need a job.
Right, you got to get that consulting money out.
There you go. That's right. So you got to kiss the ass of some corporation because once you're out and you fought back, they're gonna be like, "Fuck you, man. You cost us billions of dollars by getting the dyes out of our food," and I think that's the motive. Is not they want Skittles to look cool. I think the motive is it's probably cheaper because there's other ways. Like one of the red dyes that they use comes from a bug.
Oh, Red 5 is beetles, crushed up beetles. Yeah.
And I think the crushed up beetles are more expensive than the chemical that fucks up your hormones. So they could easily make red Skittles. They're just not going to make as much money from the Skittles if they use other forms of dye.
You don't think that they would look at the side effects of things like that and say, like, if we can rewire somebody's neurology to want our food more, you don't think they would do that?
I think they would.
Doritos.
I mean, cigarettes,
like
there's already a precedent for that where they were fully aware of how addictive cigarettes were and they wanted to make them more addictive. Jesus Christ, man, try buying cigarettes in Canada. It's hilarious.
Oh, I have. Yeah, because I lived up there for a while. They're like $50, not literally, but they're practically $50 a pack, and they have pictures of lung cancer on them.
They're not displayed. They're in a drawer, so you don't get triggered because a big part of the addict is triggering. So you go and you look at the cigarettes, and that part of yourself gets triggered, and then you want a cigarette, so you can't see them.
Do you remember Bill Hicks' joke about that?
No.
Where he was like saying like they have lots of different labels, so you just have to pick the one that's right for you. I forget exactly how he put it, but it's just like there's the lung cancer one, and then the smoking may
kill babies.
Right? It's like, oh, give me the smoking kills babies. Well, give me the secondhand smoke.
Yeah, it definitely it. Though I do sort of hate regulation like that because I think a human being should be allowed to destroy themselves if they want to, but and also I worry about the sort of subconscious affirmation of something being unhealthy. Like how much does it impact you when you're looking at it that you're gonna die if you do this?
Yeah, well then you're gonna like Freud's concept of the death drive.
Yeah,
then you get into that, and that's anything. Well, that's like something that people just have it figured out for some reason in our society. As soon as you make something forbidden, that's what people want.
There you
It's
go.
like the most obvious thing.
There you go.
So if you cancel something, if you make it taboo, if you force it to, onto some dark corner of the internet, all of a sudden that's going to be the thing that everyone wants.
This is what I've been thinking about, man. It's just sort of how, like, to be reactionary is to be reflective in the opposite. You're literally a mirror of the thing that you are rebelling against. So, so the thing, you think that you're liberated or something, or doing something free, but if that free thing is a rejection of something, so that you end up doing the opposite just because that's your idea of rebellion, you are the same thing. You're the thing looking at itself in the mirror.
Right. Well, this is like always my point about Satanism. This is like you're rebelling against Star Wars by wearing a Darth Vader costume.
I love that.
It's just like
take.
Go become a Buddhist or Vedanta or Thelamite or something. It's like there's lots of great spirit. I mean, not anti-Satanism. It's just like, I mean,
they're so sweet. My satanic friends are so sweet.
Yeah.
But
but they're Christians,
Well, don't tell them that. It's rude. It'll hurt their feelings. That's how you hurt a Satanist feelings. This is the thing I've been thinking a lot about lately. Post-election, I'm sure you've seen them. People have made these montages of nervous breakdowns.
Yes. The glorious salt mining.
The salt mining. And so, whenever I'm watching that stuff outside of just a sort of like the way we all, you slow down to look at a car accident or whatever, I've really been thinking about the qualities within each of these videos. The similarity in the way these people are dressing, the sort of repeating certain phrases.
You're talking about like people like crying and screaming on TikTok.
Yes.
Like right after they carefully set their phone up.
Right after, right. Performative nervous breakdown. It's great. Very entertaining. It will get you a lot of action online. But if you sort of look at the left and right polarity right now, conservative, liberal, in terms of the egregore, in terms of on the left and the right, if you look at this bundle of ideology and the traits associated with it, the fashion associated with it, because the politics has an aesthetic, then it's really interesting to think, my friends on the left will say the right is demonic. The people on the right will certainly say the left is demonic. That got me thinking. Possession.
Maybe Americans are just demonic. I mean, that's how the rest of the world sees
if because we've been smushed into a fucking idiot binary, and that binary has
the great Satan.
Built into the binary are two main personality types. These personality types are similar to dance styles. You go to a wedding, people do the fucking Macarena. You want to put a gun in your mouth. A gun. That is the times that I have really thought of. Somebody just told me you can't say commit suicide anymore. You unaliving myself.
Unaliving. Yeah. This is going to go on YouTube.
That's way creepier than committing suicide, by the way. Unaliving.
It's like this weird Orwellian social.
Unaliving myself. Yeah. But whatever you want to call it. Those are the times that I've really felt the abyss. When you see people happily, shamelessly doing the Macarena. They're not even thinking this is an abomination. Like, it would be better to have your hands in pagan trails and throwing them into a fucking fire.
I've been to some shows like that.
No, better than doing a Macarena, and you're happy. You look like, and also the pride. When you see people doing the Macarena, the people who are good at it.
Oh yeah.
Macarena pride, baby.
Well, when I was in high school, the worst people were the swing dance kids.
Don't even get me started on the swing dance kids.
And this was in the late 90s, like in the hierarchy of social groups in high school, they were well at the
Vile.
bottom. Yeah.
Vile. You want to understand?
I mean, below ska. That's how bad it was.
You just study the swing dance kids and you'll know why Hitler rose to power. Now, but truly, like, when you start looking at this as a kind of like, I don't want to say demonic possession because it's not quite accurate, but if you look at it as a kind of like, the egregore is an entity. The entity has characteristics, traits. It has built inside of it.
Yeah, it's a memeplex.
It's a memeplex.
Yeah.
A memeplex. That's about it. So if you look at people on the left and on the right as doing a form of Macarena, it's a dance. And the music that they're dancing to is the song of the politician, the song of the propaganda. And they're dancing in step to the song.
I just saw a great quote on Twitter that was from Cicero, the Roman writer, where he said, "Politicians are not born; they are excreted." But yeah, it's like, but the crazy thing with that is too, that the way people are now, they're so oversensitized because of the internet that as soon as you see somebody even doing a slight signifier from the other tribe, now everything they do and say is off the table.
Okay, now that's an immune response. Because there's at the very least
or an overactive autoimmune response, maybe.
Well, if you start, so like, if you look at the memeplex egregore as a virus, it functions as a virus. There's still a question, like, is a virus even alive? Like, what the fuck is it? So,
I don't think so. It's a protein.
Yeah. So there's
we got to do gain of function to find out.
Well, they are doing gain of function. It's called TikTok.
Actually, that's a good point. That's like the social media gain of function. That's, oh man,
social media is gain of function for the.
They probably run that out of the Wuhan labs too. TikTok.
Oh, and I think you could argue that the political egregore is far more dangerous than most bioweapons that are out there right now.
It's crazy. I mean, it's interesting though. Don't you think that the salt mining this time around was kind of subdued? Like, I feel like there was definitely some freakouts online, but compared to 2016, which was apocalyptic, it kind of feels like people just crumpled. And then we're like, really all they got was like, I'm quitting Twitter for the 15th time. I'm going to Blue Sky.
To me,
there wasn't a whole lot of freakout.
Dude.
We went downtown to UT Austin and Capitol Hill right after the election to see what was going on. Nothing.
Well, I'll send you some clips.
Okay. All right.
Now, and that's not a representative demographic, though. I mean, anything you're seeing online is the most extreme.
Well, you don't think UT Austin they would have been protesting? I
feel like the new mechanism of expressing your dismay is not, it's more effective if you think about it in terms of views. Like, you go out on campus and have a breakdown, you're like, what? Who's gonna see it? Like, if your breakdown goes viral, it's huge. You could have the top breakdown of the day.
Yeah,
but
they should have leaderboards.
Dude, an incredible new sport or game show. But when so that response, I get it. That's the response because you've identified with your team and you've adopted some aesthetic or trait or mode of communication that harmonizes with your team. And there's some energy investment in that. You've either been red pilled, you've gone down the rabbit hole, and you've constructed an identity that is made up of all of these ideas that represent your team. And that takes some work. Now, to be infiltrated by the other team via data could not just lead to all the work you put into assembling your costume going out the window, but it could also lead to cognitive dissonance, meaning you no longer are perfectly harmonizing with the idiot Macarena you're doing on your side of the fence. So you're going to be out of step a little bit.
Wait, what would an example of that be? Being infiltrated by data?
So an example of being infiltrated by data, let me think. So on the left, let's start there. So let's see. On the left, what we saw, they whether they like it or not, they just got sledgehammered by data, which is they it's red now. Everything's red. The entire country that they thought was aligning with their particular set of ideas
Right.
does not align with their set of ideas. Now they have been infiltrated with that data, and that's a tough pill to swallow. They literally got a red pill. The entire country is now red, and they had to swallow that pill.
No, it's insane. They lost the president, they lost the executive, they lost the Supreme Court, they lost both branches of Congress, and they've lost social media, and they've lost the culture, which in the 60s, they did the long march through the institutions, where the plan was to get power in the culture and in academia.
Yeah, they spent
now they don't even have that,
and they worked real hard to do that.
Yeah.
And they did a good job. And for a while, aligning yourself with conservatism was the least cool fucking thing you could do. Put a gun in your mouth. Are you fucking crazy? And so what happened is, on the right, they recognized the efficacy of infiltrating the culture, and they did it better. And so now there's a shift where if you align with the left, you're no longer cool.
You think so?
Well, for sure.
Yeah.
You
don't think that's just within like the kind of like our social sphere? I mean, we're in Texas, podcasting, things like that. I mean, I'm sure if we were still in LA, it might be different.
I am so terrified of the filter bubble because it makes you irrelevant that I was very, when the elections were happening and because I go on the road all the time, meet people all over the place, not just fans, people. And and I know that is not a representative, what do they call it? That's not is it a cohort? Whatever, subjective interactions I have, obviously that is not good data if you're going to analyze the sort of national mood.
Well, here's the thing, right? And I don't want to move away from that, but just to add to what you were saying, you were talking about being infiltrated by data. I think that what happened is the Democratic Party is largely the party of social engineering, neurolinguistic programming, data analysis. And I think that they did the Nate Silver thing again, where they just looked at all this data and thought that they could socially engineer an outcome based on whatever data they're getting from Facebook and things like, their data mining operations. And when, somebody put out the spend on Kamala's campaign, and it's just a whole lot of like data analysis and hiring celebrities and things like that. But the reality is that, you can fool some people some of the time, and you can fool, but you can't fool everyone all the time. And at the core, I think there is a fundamental American character. We like freedom. We don't like being told what to do. We like playing with our kids and drinking beer in our houses. We don't like being,
like being corrected.
Right. And I think that at the end of the day, that really it's just nobody was buying what they were selling.
Well, yeah. And the other problem, I think.
So just my final point is, so when you're saying you're going out and meeting people, I think that's more valid than like you're looking at a data spread.
It felt valid to me, but also because I'm in Texas, because I am as susceptible as anybody to getting sucked into some kind of bullshit thing that is parading as default reality, but it's a distortion. I was telling my wife, Trump's gonna win. Like they're not gonna win. Also, I had been following very closely the way that the DNC or the Harris campaign had been astroturfing.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew that I started recognizing linguistic patterns in comment sections.
Like what?
Well, it seems like the strategy is so an idea emerges that's antithetical to your campaign, whatever it may be. And maybe that idea is actually valid, but instead of addressing that idea as invalid in the comment section, you hijack it with a new idea that pushes the discourse away from the fundamental idea.
Thread hijacking.
It's brilliant.
Yeah.
But
That's an intelligence agency thing that came out of I've seen papers on that from GCHQ and things like that.
It's so smart.
Yeah.
And it fucks up. It's essentially like, you go to the beehive and you put smoke under the beehive and it slows the bees down. It's some version of doing that. You're smoking out the beehive so that you're fucking up the function of collaborative reasoning. And then in that, maybe that fogginess, confusion emerges. And in the confusion, people become less interested in knowledge and more interested in belief, charisma, and that's on both sides.
Right. Well, now all this is probably automated with AI. I'm sure you get troll comments that are clearly from bots and things like that. One of the things I always do, I'll get a comment that sounds like it's somebody reacting to what I've said, and often they can even have personal information about me, but it sounds slightly off. And then I'll just start asking it GPT prompts, and it'll come out with different things.
There you go. There you go. My first taste of this was ages ago. Beto O'Rourke is running for...
Did you say beta?
Beta.
Beta O'Rourke. Yeah.
Beta O'Rourke.
Beta.
As someone in that time living in Los Angeles, I did what now I would use is somewhat unforgivable, which is like I sort of glowingly retweeted some speech he was giving.
Wait. I think I remember this. I think we were high one time and you were on ketamine and you were going on about Beto O'Rourke.
Yeah.
But you were talking, this was like, 5 years ago? You were talking about how he was being like injected into people's consciousness.
Well, yeah, that was happening because he definitely had these characteristics that I think the DNC was looking at. I was like, is that a president? And is he going to make Texas blue? And, at the time living in the filter bubble of LA, he appealed to me, but I wasn't really sold. He seemed a little salesman-y or something, but I liked something he said. I don't remember what. And I retweeted it. Jesus Christ. Like, why the fuck is someone living in Los Angeles getting involved in Texas politics? It's like truly satanic, truly dark. But regardless, a flurry of instantaneous comments. That's signal one. If you're getting like an immediate, instantaneous, well thought out response that seems cut and pasted, that's a signal that you are either engaging with a bot or just someone who's working in a call center.
Well, they used to have that thing called correct the record, which is just, if you remember that during the 2016 where Hillary just had this huge bank of people being paid like pennies a post to just go and post stuff on people's pages. Now I think it's all AI.
I think it's people too.
Okay. And there's a lot of people that are clearly, there's also like meme accounts on both sides where you look, or for various foreign governments, so you look at it, and it's clearly people in a call center in India.
Well, yeah, 100%, because you can always tell if you go back on their X thread, Blue Skies thread, whatever the fuck you're using, go and look at how much they're posting. And you will realize they don't sleep.
Right.
They're posting on a 24-hour cycle. Somehow they don't sleep.
Right.
And so that's the sign that is a AI or a call center or someone just getting like chump change for posting shit. But this person used the term demagogue. And I thought that was interesting because you don't hear that word thrown around a lot online, right? And whatever. But then another person used the same word and another person used the same word. And I'm like, wait, there's no way 3 people in less than 10 minutes are using that word on Twitter. Bullshit. And then that's when I started looking into it and realized the obvious. If you have X number of followers, there's a little file on you that is in a data bank somewhere that probably can be used by any of these call centers. So they can personalize their response in a way that makes you feel a little affectionate towards the person. In the sense, this person...
This is trivial to do with code. You just read the person's tweets and then, you basically do you train an AI model on
There you go. So
more or less.
Anyway, the point is, because of the signal jamming, because of the astroturfing, the filter bubbles get enforced. And I think the strategy there is you're thinking, and it's really fucked up. This particular strategy is so unethical. So the idea would be you want your candidate to win, not because of social pressure, but because whatever idea they're putting out there, whatever policy they're saying they're going to do is good, logical, makes sense, rational.
Right.
So if you're trying to wag the dog and get your candidate elected, not through policy, but through social pressure, particularly the basic human need to be in the majority. I don't want to be on the losing team. Then you what you're doing in that case is very destructive, because
it's totally destructive of the social fabric and of trust and of
yeah,
the social contract period.
yeah,
And I think people are sick of it, and that's what we saw in the election. And I think America would have behaved the same way if the other side had been doing everything the Democrats has. So I don't even necessarily think it is about policy. I think people don't like being told what to do. And one of the things I wanted to talk to you about, and we were talking about this a bit on text, is, you know, regardless of who won the election, it's clear to me the center of cultural power in America has not only shifted to podcasting and YouTube. It's like, basically, it wasn't just people didn't vote for Kamala. They rejected New York and Los Angeles. They rejected Hollywood. They don't give a shit that the Avengers, you know, are for Kamala or whatever. And so if you think about it, Austin, in a way, is now the center of culture, has at least certainly has the potential to be the center of cultural power in America. Well, I think the stupidest thing that Kamala did was not go on Rogan. I think that's really obvious. It's just like, that's like an election losing move.
Yeah, that was a tremendous mistake. She had people in her team that told her not to do it because they're offended by him. And because of that, she missed a chance. But that being said, I think the problem was that she was like, many of the things like she's saying, like remove the personality, just look at the things she's saying, are very like basic sort of humanist values, you know, equity, hope, joy, compassion.
But they're hollow words. It's like Obama's change campaign. Change, what does that mean? It means something different to everyone. That's neurolinguistic programming. It's a hypnotic word. It doesn't mean anything.
Well, and this is the issue. This is where I think it gets really, when like words that are precious words that have lots of meaning and are meant to be tools through which to articulate a way for people to subjectively reduce their suffering via, you know, cultivating compassion for themselves, and then naturally, spontaneously, that emerges in the world. But basically, like, okay, so you know that story. You probably tell it better than I can. Post-enlightenment, they encountered the Buddha. Some people encountered the Buddha. I think they became his followers. And he was glowing, that post-enlightenment glow. And they were so astounded by it, whatever this person was. They said, are you a saint? No. Are you a god? No. Well, then what are you? I'm awake. And so this awakening turned into woke. They took,
which is it's a complete that's to talk about satanic, because part of the essence of Buddhist enlightenment is understanding that you are not your story, you're not your body, you're not your mind. And it's like the to turn it around and make it total self-identification.
Yeah. It's dark.
It's dark. But that said, I mean, like, I will actually put a flag up for the other side of that argument too, which is, you know, a really interesting period in history for me is all the consciousness raising, like at Esalen at the late end of the 60s and in the early 70s. And they got to this moment, you know, they're in hot tubs, all these, you know, boomer hippies are doing acid and having breakthroughs and realizing, I'm not my body, I'm not me, I'm transcendent, all that. And then it broke down when they invited Black Panthers to come and do the same thing with them, thinking that they would have a break, you know, they would, you know, be able to talk and have a breakthrough. And the reality was that at this time, this group of people, like Black people, didn't want to be disidentified. You know, it's like as a professor, I had a professor named Louis.
That's cool. That's a cool word, disidentified.
And he pointed out that it's like, you know, one of the reasons why there's a genre of music called soul music is under slavery, it was considered that Black people didn't have souls. right? Like that was a literal thing. So it's like when you tell somebody then who has fought,
Mm-hmm.
with real fighting and struggle and violence, oh yeah, like, you're not you. You like actually your identity that you fought for to be able to assert yourself. We're gonna erase that now. Well, that feels a little different. I'm
Well,
sure.
and there you go. Because this is the right there, that place right there, wherever it shows up, this is where you go off the path. Because the moment you have that agenda, when you're around anybody to fix them, what's implicit in the agenda
Right.
is an assessment that they're broken. So now I'm interacting with a broken person who I'm trying to fix. That person does not think they're broken. That person thinks they fixed
This is,
themselves.
by the way, this is why I'm so abrasive in my teaching style. It's like, oh, like, fuck you. It's like, you did this to yourself. What are you going to do about it? It's like, I don't care. It's like, well, it's not even that. It's not even you did this to yourself. It's just like, there's nothing wrong with you. It's like, you're dying on the street of fentanyl. Like, okay, how's that working out for you?
And that,
it's not my life. It's your life,
see,
right?
now,
Who am I to say that that's not what's right for you?
You're giving voice to one of the things you are not supposed to say. And that's a good thing you're not supposed to say, because now you're getting back on, you're harmonizing with what the Dharma in that case. Now, when I see someone on the street dying, if I see anyone dying, I don't care who the fuck they are. If I'm watching the post Nuremberg Nazis get hung, there is a spark of compassion. You look at the karmic situation, you look at the person, and you feel something regardless of the destruction they sowed in the world. And so this is not to say become a sociopath, but
I'll counter that though, which is if you want to play the bad guy, you have to accept the fate of the bad guy. So I don't feel sorry for.
Well, I can't come when I'm watching the Nuremberg hangings if I don't do that. Like,
okay. Are you choking yourself with a belt while you're?
Oh yeah, baby. But the what I'm saying is if the initial contact with the other is to identify a thing that needs to be fixed, if the agenda,
this is foul. It's like, well, it's just shitty, like, like school teacher, like church lady, like
there you go,
fucking Puritan energy. It just sucks. Nobody likes that.
And it doesn't work.
Nobody wants. If I go to the doctor, I don't, even in that situation, I don't want the doctor to feel sorry for me. I just want them to do the thing that I'm asking for.
So,
like, that's it. And don't give me the runaround, don't be like,
so, I'm driving up here to do the podcast. I'm happy. I'm going to get to hang out with Jason. Because when I hang out with you, I feel good.
Me too.
And I can hang out with you and we can not talk about anything metaphysical, mystical, Buddhist, and I feel good. And the reason that is because you have done work on yourself, and you feel, I'm not saying any of us are perfect, but it's
because of my perfect glowing skin.
It is your skin. Yeah. You have a great skincare regimen. But this is a very frustrating situation to find oneself in, which is, number one, you look out in the world and you have a legitimate, very good, built-in desire to ease suffering in the world. You really want to do that. Most people do, left, right. Now, where it gets frustrating is, it is so much easier to fix other people, or to try to fix other people, than to work on yourself.
Yes.
Dive into the dark.
The other thing too, and you get this if you're hanging out in the New Age, meditation community, spiritual community, whatever. The really insidious thing that people do also is, people will go to one workshop and then decide they're a healer. And then what they'll do is, and they're completely on their own, fucked up trip that they're on, but then people will project their damage onto other people, be like, oh, I can heal this for you. I try to heal it on the other person. It's really sick.
It's sick.
And like people are just like sharing pathologies, passing them around.
And that is the end result of that mode of altruism in the world is, in general, it has very little impact. But if it does have impact, the impact is not to create a better world, but rather to make people throw their defenses up and bare their teeth. And then that creates more aggression in the world, because if you go into the world as an aggressive altruist, then what you will receive from the world is aggression back.
Right.
And so the motivation, good. The means of reaching this, the goal. So and they say it's we want progress, progressiveness. Like, and this is a good, like, a lot of the ideas proposed by the left are good, beautiful, utopian visions of a perfect world. Really delightful, man. I'm saying, if we look at them not as top down, authoritarian, regulated, enforced language, blah, 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 but rather, let's just go through all of the catchphrases on the left. Inclusivity. Wonderful, 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 wonderful. I don't want division. I don't want there to be a fracturing fractal of micro cults fighting each other. Inclusivity. Wonderful. Equity. I mean, yeah. I mean, if we look at the very definition of it.
Depends what you mean by it. But
I mean, yin yang. I'm saying that the thing that creates universal balance, this perfect balancing of polarities, there is equity there. Good, balance, equal, balance. I'm saying balance. And how do we get balance? You like that, the drive towards balance. Good. Inclusivity, equity. What are some other catchphrases?
Man, I tried to tune it all out now.
Don't. I'm telling you, man, I try to absorb both sides as much as I can to try to find the connective tissue.
Okay.
And the connective tissue between both sides is 100% a genuine desire for the world to be harmonious.
We're all humans, like everyone, well, most of us, but, people just differ in their approaches. But it's, you were talking about, the parties as memeplexes. Look, I grew up in Southern California in an ultra-liberal family. I'm an occult anarchist. I was about as left-wing as you can possibly get. And, I protested the Iraq War in New York and London. Like, I was involved in the anti-war movement all throughout my 20s. Yeah. And when I was growing up, it's just, the words are the same, but the whole memeplexes have now shifted. And this apparently is normal. The parties kind of reverse every 36 years. But
pole shift.
When I was growing up, being a Democrat meant being for working class and poor people.
Absolutely.
Being against war, being for consumer protections like Ralph Nader's seatbelt initiative, being anti-censorship, if you remember, all the stuff with Frank Zappa in the 80s. And now all of that has somehow, the data that's coming out of this election, the class thing has completely shifted, where now the Democrats are the party of rich elites and Republicans are the opposite, which was completely different during the Bob Dole campaign. It's completely shifted. Yeah. The racial, so-called minorities, which are not minorities anymore, are now voting red, which, I don't know if you noticed all the anti-Hispanic racism coming out of left-wing people on Twitter.
That was a very strange thing.
That was insane. It's like, wait a minute, isn't this why you were anti-Trump? Because he was saying, all these things about Mexico and Mexicans. It's like, wait, but now you're going to be openly, flagrantly racist to Latinos because now they're off your.
They're misogynist.
That was pretty shocking.
Suddenly the catchphrase was Latinos are misogynists. And yeah, that was shocking, but it honestly not that shocking when you realize the political system, it uses people. It doesn't care about the individual. The political system identifies a potential ally, exploits the ally, and the moment the ally is no longer useful to the machine, the ally is cast aside.
It's disgusting.
It's disgusting.
But now everyone can see it.
And that's
in
good.
Real time.
That's good. And this is also, the problem is, these beliefs you add and have.
Yeah, I haven't changed my political positions. It's just like the world is chaos right now.
Well, no. What all that happened is that just because somebody revised the dictionary and changed the meanings of certain words doesn't mean the fundamental rationale behind some approach to living in the world that would change too. And this seems to be the great magic trick, is that somehow there seems to be this very strange belief that if we redefine certain words to fit into a political agenda, that the people who adhered to the ideas that those words expressed will shift their behavior to match the new definition. And that is such an illogical, insane fallacy. And that is where, if you want to do the analysis, that's where they fucked up. It didn't work. No one changed. No one realigned.
Because they're moving. It's because they're looking at people as data on spreadsheets to be moved around. And that's not what people are.
Pure dehumanization of people based on, and also, and the really ironic thing is, I think the DNC, the creators of the filter bubble, got trapped in their own fucking filter bubble. And the rules that they were attempting to get everyone to adhere to, no one was adhering to them, but they had to keep following those rules, meaning that discourse within the thing itself, suddenly they couldn't say out loud certain things, certain critiques of what was happening. And because they couldn't say it out loud, there was no ability to course correct. And because of that lack of ability to course correct, the entire country is red. Some kind of terrible, parable level, mythological, like, thing has just happened, which is like you drank your own fucking poison and it killed your ass.
And it's like, if you talk to people at liberal NGOs and things like that, where it's like nobody in even liberal think tanks can get anything done anymore, because their meetings are, okay, first we have to do a land acknowledgement, now we have to do, oh well, if you're white and male you can't speak, we have to, and it's completely fallen apart. And it basically, if you leave the politics aside, it's the same principle as if you have a king if you have a king, it's a leadership style where if you have a king or the head of a company that everyone's afraid to tell the truth to, and he's dictating to everyone. This is why dictatorships fall, because they're not listening. Everyone's afraid to tell the truth to the leader. Therefore, the leader never gets correct information and the thing collapses. So you have to listen to everyone. The smartest heads of companies will go and talk to people in the mailroom, and that's it. That's a cartoonish way of putting it, but it's real. You have to talk to everyone, because you can get one insight, particularly when you're talking to not just your constituents, but the people who are directly interacting with the constituents. If you're not listening to them, then you have no grasp on reality whatsoever, and you're hiring celebrities to project a false reality. And Americans aren't stupid. They're not. We've all got the internet now.
And also, I just don't think people are stupid.
No,
and I think
they never have been.
But and that is another error. And I think that the goal of anyone in the world, in general, should be to find a way to suffer less. And there's a clear, and you know this, you teach it, but there's lots of methods to do this. And because we're bundled up inside of people, I think, is a legitimate, beautiful altruism, a kind of spontaneous. Everyone wants to help. People want to help.
Well, people get traumatized too. And trauma and pain change people.
That's right.
And we've been through a lot of trauma-based mind control as a society.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so, to me, it's sort of like let's find a way to look at this terrain in a sort of transcendent way that isn't filtered by the bias of whatever political party you subscribe to. And so the first, I think you have to boil it down to like, what is the fundamental goal? And I know humans are complex, and having one fundamental goal is ridiculous, but I would say if we're looking towards harmony, I want harmony more than I want discord. Harmony is beautiful. I don't like listening to, I live in a house with 3 children. And there's harmony never fucking happens, and a poodle that barks. So it's discord all the time.
Okay.
But harmony does spontaneously emerge. And when it emerges, it's the most beautiful thing to watch, which is the children will start playing, or this spirit enters the house. And it's the most incredible thing when it happens. And suddenly you it's like you're living in infinity. You're living outside of time. It's incredible. You're at Tom Bombadil's house. You know what I mean? It's the most beautiful thing. That, I think most people have had some taste of that and have various associations with why or what that is. But I think finding a way to create the conditions where that can happen more is good. And that should be
I
a goal.
agree. And I think that, you know, it's like, that's why, for instance, we're in this really, if you have these huge private equity firms buying up all the houses so people can't be homeowners.
Yeah.
And I hate to sound like a Republican from the 80s, but it's like if you have people attacking the traditional family and saying you don't want this and trying to basically remove all the preconditions for what you just described, that's going to lead to, let's say, resentment at the very least. Because and it should.
Well, absolutely. I mean,
it should lead to resentment.
The issue here,
because we can talk about spiritual stuff all day long, but if people are in a situation where they can't own their own home, where they can't start a family, where they can't fulfill the basic needs of life, because I don't think life is that hard. The things that make people happy are basically the things you just described. But now if you make that impossible for people and say you have to live in like pods, you know, it's like, that is not going to make people happy no matter how much social engineering you do.
Okay.
And society's going to collapse.
You have identified an emergent structure that is creating discord, right? And you have, and it took a long time for that structure to emerge, like some kind of demonic stalactite or something. It's like, and so there's all kinds of those things within the world. And so an encounter mentally with that produces a sense of a lot of feelings. One could be despair. Yeah. One could be, this is an unsolvable situation other than like violent revolution or something like that. There's all kinds of things that emerge when you look at the big problems. And so to me, if we're going to really just like simplify it down, fear. This is going to produce some fear, and fear turns into anger. Fear and anger turn into a mode of interacting with other people that produces more fear and anger. So whatever systemic structural discord you've identified is true, correct, no doubt. So because we've been given a crash course in how not to address these issues, if you want to create lasting change,
it's a good way to look at it.
Now is the time to rethink everything.
So let's talk about that. I mean, we can kind of do, everyone's been kind of doing postmortem on the election, but you know, what's undeniable is we're in a completely different reality now than we were a few weeks ago. What do you think is, how is your process in thinking about that reality and readjusting to where we're at?
Okay, I'm going to push back on what you just said.
Okay.
We are not in a completely different reality.
Okay, timeline, we chose a different timeline than we could have, no?
Nope.
Okay.
All that's happened is a new kind of, like, nothing has changed with reality. And I don't mean to go Buddhist nerd here, but emptiness is emptiness.
This is the place to do it.
Yeah, I know. So the stories have changed. I guess you could say, you know, like you buy an apartment, you're moving into an apartment, you go in to look at it, the walls look like shit. You go back, the walls have been painted, baby. It's the same fucking apartment. They just put new paint on the walls.
Okay.
So I guess you could say reality got a paint job. But ultimately, I don't really think anything has changed other than, and also if you look back, At the previous reality, really, if you think about the day-to-day experience, not watching TV, but day-to-day, whatever you were carrying around inside of you, the story was in your head, but the thing itself, like, if we look at it from space, for example, like if we are on a UFO looking down at Earth, and we know nothing about Earthlings. If I'm looking down at it, like if you look at an ant's nest, I don't do it enough anymore, but when I was a kid, I was fascinated by ants. You look at an ant's nest. If somehow you realize that there were within that nest factions of ants that had completely differing political opinions, it would be shocking.
That'd be really interesting, actually.
If you could talk to one of
I'd watch like a 20-episode show on that, just on that.
Dude, I would only listen to the ants. It's probably better we can't know what they think.
Ants are like something like 1,000 times stronger than humans, like based on their size.
So you know what I mean? Like if you talk to an ant in a long line of ants going to gather larvae, right? And that ant was like, yeah, I'm going to work. And you're like, yeah, because you're part of an ant's nest and you're obviously doing the same thing everyone else is doing there. I'd be like, what the fuck are you talking about? I care about my family or whatever.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so if we're looking at Earth from space, what you're seeing is clearly a solar, a kind of reactivity to the solar cycle. We're seeing these pulsations of traffic at predictable times all over the planet. And those predictable times, the sun goes up, the sun goes down. So I'm going to look at that now. I think, well, it appears that they worship the sun and the rituals are in the morning and at night. And the ritual is the pulsation of traffic where they go to adore the sun or like, in the day or whatever. I'm just saying, you look at the thing, and I'm not just saying like traffic. I'm saying architecture. You look at the thing itself and it's just a hive, and the hive is filled with buildings that are all basically the same, power lines everywhere, and pulsations of traffic influenced by the sun. So reality has not changed.
So let me redefine the question then. So reality has not changed, which is reassuring. Well, let's talk about the frame that you use, which is 2 different dances. Those dances are going to change. So a lot of people are not going to update. We're talking about, yes, the illusion, what people are saying online, but also, like what people are saying on YouTube and podcasts and the approach to the culture that on its own plane of illusion, that does matter and it does have an effect.
It does.
And what's going to happen is a lot of people are not going to update their script. So you're going to have all the people who refuse to update their script on the left, just, blowing each other on blue sky. And then you're going to have, and I think that the thing on the right of people, attacking cancel culture and things like that, well, we've gone through that epoch. We're in a different, the playing field has changed politically. So this is an open question. I mean, in terms of reorienting, the culture has changed. Let's put it, the reality hasn't changed, but the culture in America has changed and online.
Totally.
And as people who engage with that, it's important to think about that, and it's an open question. I'm wondering if you've had insights into that, or if you've seen things emerging. I mean, it's probably too early to tell, but
sure,
it's not too early to strategize.
DJ Uncle Sam has dropped a new beat.
Yes,
and so I think that, like, for sure. For one thing, it's like, let's talk about salt mining, for example. I was watching some montage just last night of people having breakdowns. And if you separate your logical mind, depending on what side you align with, from what's happening, and you look at what's happening, and remove the part of yourself that's thinking the obvious things, they set up a camera early, you're timing your nervous break, remove all of that. And look at them. What do you see? Profound suffering and fear. Some of them
not attention seeking.
I think, and it's if you want to remove yourself, and this again is like, you want to talk about like that the defense mode, the immune system mode. One thing that's very good at filtering out and keeping you from engaging in is compassion. So step one. And as a parent, the things that my children will have meltdowns over are ridiculous. But you know what I mean? So like if my child, for example, this morning, because I drove him to school, when his mom drives him to school, he gets gum. I don't have gum. We're running late for school.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And so when he is like very upset about this reality, it's easy to let the adult part of my brain get in there and think, it's just gum.
Right.
Dude, I got to get you to school.
Right.
Like, are you serious right now? Like, what the fuck? There's so much gum in the world. But if I scrape away the triggering thing and just look at what's happening, it's real. Do I invalidate his feelings, his emotions? Do I tell him, you're out of your fucking gourd, baby? There's gum everywhere. That's not cool. He's fucking,
Okay.
you know?
Okay.
But also, if I like let him tantrum his way into me going inside and making him late for school to get a piece of gum, I'm a shitty parent. I gotta teach him. Sometimes you don't get gum. But if I let my logical, rational, non-heart centered mind invade into parenting, then I will invalidate legitimate emotions the child is having. Gentle parenting is the imbalance where all you do is care about the emotions.
Right.
So anyway, my point is, if you apply that same dynamic to the salt mining, that is suffering. That is legitimate, real suffering. And also, even if it starts performative, it will turn into real suffering. And so, first step, notice the pain. That's real. And don't just have the guts to scrape away the ridiculousness from your POV of that pain. For a second, turn off the Ben Shapiro part of your brain. Turn off the Charlie Kirkman part of your brain. Turn it off for a second. You can let them back in and just look. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying pander to them, and I'm not saying like give in to it and sort of like distort their reality by affirming that this nervous breakdown is a pragmatic and effective and healthy way to deal with a shift in a political landscape. But I'm saying just number one, taste the pain. That's real. And then compassion will emerge. And that's a beautiful thing because the compassion doesn't give a fuck about why. It just sees the suffering.
Right. Well, I suppose like from a Buddhist perspective too, it's like it would be much smarter to just let people have their thing and don't be like, oh, facts don't care about your feelings, because now it digs it in further. They haven't been able to, just as on a physical level, they haven't been able to express the emotion out of their body fully.
Yeah.
You're telling them it's not okay to do that, where it's probably less destructive in the long run to just kind of let people have their moment.
Let them have the tantrum, and they're going to do it anyway. It doesn't matter. You're not going to stop it. I'm just saying the beginning, my view is that, and again, this is just because my rainbow wheel has been spinning regarding the whole thing because it's so unique and so, I feel like, filled with potentially great energy. The idea would be, okay, and I'll shut up with this rant. I'm sitting with my boy. We're getting ice cream. He says to me, Dad, they say you can hear God. I can't hear God. And then he goes, can't hear him.
That's adorable.
It was
That's so adorable.
I loved it. It was such a cool moment. And there's so many funny responses to that. But, I'm thinking in terms of like, that made me start thinking, what does that mean to hear God? And so, I was telling him, well, sometimes if you get real quiet, you can hear God. Like sometimes maybe that's what it means. And maybe God doesn't like talk like other people do. Maybe there's something, if you get real quiet, you can hear God. And so I think if we look at this political tumult as two vying dances, you got the swing kids versus the Macarena kids. What do they have in common? They're both dancing to the same song. Now, they might be dancing a dance that is a dance of disgust. They might be doing a victory dance, but it's to the same fucking song. And that song is a distortion. It's a distortion of reality in the sense that the political reality has convinced us that it's fundamental reality. So I would say this first step, the goal would be to liberate oneself from DJ Uncle Sam and start trying to tune in to another song that is not dependent on the government,
right,
or history.
right. Well, this is what spirituality is, and this is ultimately what magic is. Because one of my issues with spirituality, even with Buddhism, is at the end of the day, you're still signing up for another cult. You're signing up for another group belief, and it would be, it would be silly to pretend otherwise. But of course, it would be silly to pretend that these things don't have tremendous amounts of useful information in them. But the idea with magic and, the thelemic approach to magic is the song that you tune into is, your face before you were born. It's like you tune into yourself, not somebody else's hypnotic construction, which is all that society is now. It probably always was. It's like literally everything in America is someone's multi-level marketing scam at this point, whether it's the government, all the way from the government down, and ultimately, you're not going to be liberated by signing up for an ideology. You will be liberated by using techniques you can get from things like that to discover your true nature.
That's right.
And I think, and tuning into and keeping, and not just finding it, but keeping in tune with it. It's like, I'm getting back to meditation finally after all this trauma of the fucking last few years and last several years. And it's always there to tune back into, but it's really easy to lose the frequency. You have to tune into the frequency of your larger self. And for lack of a better way of putting it, and I don't think it should be, there's lots of techniques, but it's not like there's one right way to do that. There's lots of ways that work for different types of people, but that should be the goal. And that will produce a society of more individuated and therefore more people who are more individuated people who are able to contribute a lot more to society. But it's just much easier to treat people like herd animals, the people in power.
That's right.
And to offer forms of, basically offer panaceas to people that they think, to what you were saying, ease their suffering, but are ultimately kind of meaningless.
You're right.
Did you see, by the way, on a slight tangent, did you see Zena LaVey on Jordan Peterson's podcast?
No.
Oh my God.
He had Zena LaVey?
He had Zena LaVey on for like 3 hours. It was amazing.
That's
I haven't finished watching it. Zena LaVey is like, a lot of people in the occult, I'm kind of like, ugh. But Zena LaVey is somebody that I have tremendous respect for, not just for who she is, but what she's gone through. And she became a tantric Buddhist.
I saw that.
Yeah, she's a serious practitioner. And was not a Satanist, she talked a lot about just how abusive that family was and how dysfunctional and horrible it was growing up in that environment, where they're just letting anybody come in, and pedophiles and things like that. And it was a nightmare. But she is...
No one would have expected that.
Right, I know, right?
That's shocking news.
I know, right? You get this idea of Anton LaVey as essentially just a fundamentally selfish and self-absorbed person in a not cool
That's
way.
how she was conveying it?
More or less about him.
No fondness at all? A real, like, this is an abusive
I don't think that she liked her
relationship?
father at all.
Oh, shit. I'll have to watch that.
Yeah, that was, fairly infamous drama in the occult community in the 90s. But she is an incredibly strong-willed,
children of preachers.
Yeah, right. But she had this kind of, and she is soft-spoken, but was basically pulling rank on Jordan Peterson multiple times and saying, it's like, basically at one point is like, what you're describing, Jordan, is what Trungpa would call idiot compassion.
She said that.
Yeah. Like she pulled out the idiot compassion thing. And I was like, thank fuck, because I think, and we've talked about this on your show before, that little distinction that Trungpa put out, there's so much useful stuff in Trungpa, that idea of idiot compassion, where idiot compassion is, it's like, oh, go on and touch the hot stove.
Yeah.
Do you.
Yeah.
Rather than slapping the kid's hand away from the hot stove. And the issue with the Democrats and the reason that they lost one of the major reasons, is idiot compassion, where it's like, oh yeah, let's just like, anything goes. We don't need to get into specific issues, but people can think of obvious ones themselves, where you're, in the name of appearing like a compassionate, good person, you're doing utterly destructive things.
And you want to domesticate compassion, and you want to neuter compassion. You want compassion to be something definable, plannable. You want to, you want to come up, this is compassion and this isn't compassion. And most importantly, you don't want compassion to be what I think it is, which is a spontaneous, natural result of present moment awareness that is not planning. Compassion comes out naturally. The compassion, you want to talk about inclusivity. Compassion is inclusive. You can't
sometimes.
Well, if you are not compassionate, if you are only compassionate to this or that, and not just compassionate, then I would say that you have not really plugged into the damn thing. Now, the idiot compassion is a kind of planning compassion, is a calculated compassion. It's got an agenda to it, and the agenda is attached to things that aren't compassion. The agenda is generally attached to some ideals, some ideology that you subscribe to. And even though in the moment, slapping the thing out of the hand is clearly the compassionate act, before you do that spontaneously, you pull up your fucking, neurological augmented reality system that tells you, oh, no, we can't do that. And you don't do it. And you don't trust yourself in that moment. And that is not compassion.
No, and I mean, compassion can be wrathful too, and non-exclusive, or exclusive rather than inclusive. An example would be, no, like you're a heroin addict. I don't want to hear your sob stories. You've ripped me off like 4 times with fake stories about things that you're going through that are so awful. And you know what? I just, I love you, but I'm talking to a drug, not a person right now, and I can't have you in my life anymore.
Okay, let me
rather than humoring it.
I don't mean,
and nobody wants to be in that position, because particularly if it's family. But I've talked to many people and often have been in that situation. And sometimes that's just how it has to go.
Inclusion does not mean enabling. And that's a really important distinction. Inclusion does not mean enabling. Inclusion means that I am not cutting you off, man, in the sense of I am like, you are human and I love you and I am tuned in to your suffering. I'm including you in my heart. But I am not going to enable you because I'm including you. Right. And when you, as it's been explained to me, wrathfulness, one of the skillful means.
Yeah, and it's hard to do right.
It's cutting. And so when we hear wrathfulness, we think tigers. And my teacher was telling me a lot of times wrathfulness is whispered. Wrathfulness is very sweet.
It can just be saying no.
It can be saying no, but true wrathfulness, like you would never say, my surgeon was very wrathful to my tumor. Right. You know what I mean? But it's the same principle. The surgeon is not going to say, you know what? You have the most beautiful tumor. You should embrace that sweet, sweet tumor. The surgeon doesn't talk to the tumor. The surgeon doesn't say, excuse me, do you know you're killing your host organism? And I was wondering if you could stop. The surgeon slices that fucker out. And that is compassion. And compassion is sometimes like that. And so compassion is extraordinary. And I think that instead of doing top down, let's get rid of BlackRock.
We should get rid of BlackRock.
But I think that instead of doing top down, not to say stop trying to do massive activism to create systemic change for the better. Buddhism, a lot of people accuse it of being too passive. It is not.
No, it can be very engaged.
But and especially after what just happened, what I think is that the action right now, the direct action required, is not to go throw fucking a gin and tonic in Lindsey Graham's face.
But did you hear Tim Dillon's impression of Lindsey Graham? Oh my God, that was
damn it.
so funny.
I just want all this money.
Oh my God. I can't even, I don't want to ruin it by trying to repeat it, but it was so, oh, it was so funny. Oh
Oh,
God.
poor fucking Lindsey Graham, man. I would love, like, you know, and you obviously, I just would love it if there was some way to like make it so that if you are a war hawk and you are going on the news to promote war, that you have to take the next plane to wherever the fuck that war is happening. I would love to see Lindsey Graham in a fucking body armor in the trenches of Ukraine.
Well, that's why people that's you know, by the end of the election, it was just so blatantly obvious how much they were lying. You know, that's one of the things Trump said, where he said, you know, like maybe basically Liz Cheney wouldn't be starting these wars if she had to go there and face guns pointed at her face, and people, they represented that as,
Did he mean a firing squad?
Oh, he's gonna kill Liz Cheney. No, but that's a point that literally anybody on the left up to when it became Dick Cheney's Democratic Party you would hear saying, like, oh, if politicians start wars, they should have to do what you just said, right?
There were attempts.
How is that controversial?
They tried to put it. You can look back at the history of things that they voted on in our government, and one of them was, if you are a politician supporting war, you have to go fight in it.
They voted on that?
Yes, you can look it up.
When was that?
I don't know. I was looking at all the things that, like, this is like a real logical sort of like, listen,
yeah,
if you believe in this shit enough, like if you really believe in it, put your money where your fucking mouth is.
Mm-hmm.
Get your ass out there to those fucking trenches and start really fighting. Like,
yeah.
And if you do that and come back alive, which Lindsey Graham certainly wouldn't, if you come back alive, then you're going to be, your impact will be much more than if you're some doughy motherfucker, you know, inviting mass murder.
Well, particularly now, because I mean, like, not to get off on war, but you know, the thing, we have at least two wars going on right now, and it's the first time in history where everything's on social media as soon as it happens. And with Ukraine, you can see, I've watched tons of YouTube interviews with guys from Europe, England, America, who just were like, you know what, I'm not going to let Putin kill you, you know, whatever the logistics of the war are. Like, I feel personally responsible. I'm seeing Putin kill civilians on TVs. You know what? I'm just going to go fight. And there's people from all walks of life who just, and not just younger people, older people too, who are like, fuck it. Like, I'm just going to go be a part of this. And when you put that level of bravery and self-sacrifice,
yeah,
and it's kind of crazy, but it's still brave. You know, it's like when you put that next to people who are just like, oh yeah, you know, like, we need to make XYZ dollars in geopolitical moves.
It's a real difference.
It's a real difference. Yeah.
And, you know, this bullshit that's happening it's really shocking to me. Like, you know, on Reddit, World News, they posted the thing, Biden authorizes long-range missile strikes. Yeah. And again, as someone who emerged in the same leftist culture you did, we are always against war. You don't want
that's how it used to be.
You don't want war anymore, and that used to be not even a dramatic thing to say. It seemed like a kind of milquetoast thing to say, just whatever. It didn't align you with a political party. But you read these people who align with the left, this party of equity, harmony, unity, inclusion, and they love war.
I love it.
They're right away. They're like, light them up, baby. Yeah, let's burn some Ruskies. And it's like, you are now exactly the way the conservatives were. That was what they were like with war, too.
Part of it might just be getting older, too, and just feeling more. I mean, the world feels so much more fragile now than it did when I was younger. Like, it feels like it could fall apart in a second. And also, the world is a lot different from when we were younger, and the fact that, like, America really is losing dominance to a multipolar world, and it's a much more dangerous situation than it used to be. So I've had to kind of revise some of my thoughts on this as well, because yes, I'm anti-war, but I'm also not into, like, oh yeah, just let Putin kill all these fucking people in Ukraine, you know. And we do live, you know, like we were talking here the other day, just in the house, you know, it's street rules. We're dealing with thugs.
Listen, my feeling in this regard, number one, this is the ultimate critique of the anti-war pacifist mentality. If you're out in the bush and a tiger comes a charging, it doesn't care that you're a
Right.
pacifist. In fact,
Right.
the great gift you could give a tiger would be to be like, I am not going to run or fight you. I'm just going to let you eat my ass. But I think that we have to find right now, in the moment, a real-time pragmatic mechanism to align ourselves with something that isn't political. And part of the sand traps that are built into the system right now are considerations of current ongoing horrific events and the natural desire to make those end either through violence, pacifism, whatever the fucking thing is.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the first step is every single person who gives a shit about climate change, for example, who gives a shit about the big talking points, environmentalists.
Mm-hmm.
Don't leave yourself out of the environment. The first thing that it seems like environmentalists have done is their relationship with the environment is transactional in the sense that instead of being the environment, they don't want the environment to kill them. It's a transactional relationship, which is if we can pacify the environment being curbing carbon emissions, it won't kill me.
Okay. And if I buy enough carbon offset credits, then I'm a good person.
There you go.
Yeah. Okay.
But you are the environment.
Yeah.
As much as anything else is. You are a biome. You are the environment. You're made up of the same shit that's in the environment. You're everything about you is the earth. Meaning that right now, on top of all the other obvious things that you could do, you could curb the carbon emissions of suffering that are happening internally, and you can make. How do we get to world peace?
We don't.
If the individual can't find peace.
Well, here's the thing. We're in the Aeon of Horus. We're in the 2,000-year dispensation of endless warfare.
Fine.
So get ready. It's all in the book of the law. It's going to be like this from here on out.
When wasn't it?
Oh yeah, but now we've got nuclear weapons. And here to take it out of the realm of Thelema for a second. It's like, here's the thing that I realized about world peace too. We've been at world peace since the end of World War II. And on the grand scheme of things, the number of people, there were like 100 million people that died in World War II. It's the worst war by far that humanity has ever fought. And if you look at, as I think future historians will, if you look at World War I and World War II as one war with a pause in the middle, which is a good way to look at
Me
it,
too.
it's just, it staggers the imagination. If you go back to the Civil War in America, it staggers the imagination, the level of suffering and destruction. And all of that ended. And yes, there's skirmishes. We've got things like Ukraine. We've got, it's a little bit more spicy now than it's been in a while. But the reason it ended was nuclear weapons. Without nuclear supremacy, and I'm not saying nuclear weapons are great, I'm just saying this is how it is. And I actually came to this kind of warped perception of the 60s, where, I mean, the fundamental idea here is peace through strength. And it's unfortunately the way of the world. But I even came to the perspective on this where I started thinking about the peace movement in the 60s. And I came up with the most fucked up take on it. I think I may have said this on your show at some point. This was many years ago, where I really think about the hippies in the 60s. Okay. Yeah. Their parents waded through the charnel houses of Europe in knee deep in blood, and Japan, as my grandfather did, right? Just doing things that are unimaginable to us, even with, movies and things like that. I mean, it's like that generation came back and they didn't talk about it. They just drank, and that's how it was.
Right.
And they didn't talk about what they had to do or what they saw.
That's
you can imagine liberating Dachau or something. We can't, but then they came back and they created the baby boomers, and they created, it's like, for our kids, we're going to make sure this never happens again.
Yes.
We have nuclear supremacy. We have a stalemate. Hopefully we have a Cold War, but let's keep it at stalemate.
Right.
And the baby boomers, as a result, in America, certainly, not in Europe, but in America, as a result of America winning the war, were the richest generation in American history. I think the Chinese middle class may now be richer, but they were the richest generation by far in American history, both before and after. And they did a peace movement in the 60s to protest the Vietnam War. But if you do what you said, which is you zoom out and look at it from space, and you think about that on the grand scale, you could also look at it this way. The children, America dominated the world and became the head of the empire. And the children of the people who did it, with all that violence, celebrated by dressing up like the people that America genocided in the first place and doing doing the Macarena.
Shit.
So it's like, and also if you listen to military historians talk about Vietnam, Vietnam was a mistake to go into, but it was also a mistake to pull out in the way that we did, in the same way that happened in Afghanistan, where we went in wrong and we came out wrong, and all that happened was we destabilized and caused destruction.
Yeah.
So I'm not necessarily, I try to look at things as natural functions, and I'm not sure, you know, I'm not sure that world peace is a realistic thing we're going to get to.
Well, here's the good news. Neither you nor I have the ability to stop war. That's for sure. You can't do it.
Right.
I can't do it.
Right.
Holding your fucking sign that says peace sure as fuck isn't going to do it. So what I'm talking about is actually an interrogation of the unknown, that we don't, here's one thing that's certain, and it's purely, and it has to be theoretical. Within the vast reservoir of the unknown data set that is imminent in the sense that it's always around us, everything that is not known, not just subjectively, but at a planetary level, I think this data must be as big as the universe. It's an infinite reservoir of data.
Mm-hmm.
Now, somewhere in there is, I don't know what, a story, a technology, a movement that would shift the way humans settle arguments from incinerating babies to something a little less violent. Now, I don't know what that is, but I have faith.
Gladiatorial combat in Speedos, like Sting and the David Lynch Dune.
Better.
Yeah, just knife fighting.
Still better.
Yeah.
Still better. Whatever the fuck it is. Fisting competitions. Better. Better. Let, you know, like, there is something. Now, I don't know what it is. But it's imminent. It's stored right now in the unknown. And so, to me, I think you have to look through the veil of geopolitics into the into the unknown. One of my favorite songs in Frozen. I think that's Frozen. The point is, the unknown.
How many times have you watched Frozen now?
Jesus Christ!
You just lost track.
Jesus Christ! Because, you know, you sit down with him.
That sounded like the end of The Wicker Man there.
You sit down with him, you're like, let's watch a movie. And, you know, you will make this mistake so many times because you imagine that they would never want to watch Frozen again. Like, how could you watch it 20 times? They wouldn't want to do that. And right away, it's like Frozen. Like, for sure, Frozen. But yeah, man, I think that the veil of Maya contains within it all history, geopolitics, all of that. This veil of Maya, or whatever you want to call it, is obscuring all unknown information from being known. And so, to me, the idea would be, let's first of all, and you taught me this, science fiction actually shapes.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
So,
everything in Star Trek has come real.
Right.
Become real. Now people are watching this on something very similar to like the view screen on Star Trek, or a communicator.
See, I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. I was just talking to a friend of mine, and he was also pointing out, you know, the ridiculousness of a binary in the elections, in the sense that what's happening when you have that binary is that you're compressing people into a sort of compartments that give the illusion of freedom, but ultimately, how could that be freedom? You know, it's just humans are much bigger than that, blah, blah, blah. But so that thing that you talk about, it really like I think about it and sometimes, and in the sense of, okay, if I peer into the world, into that dark crystal ball of propaganda, then the options are very limited. as to what could be done.
You mean in terms of what's being presented to people? Okay.
Because
yeah.
how the fuck do we
Yeah.
stop all the wars? And how do we get to a point of global harmony? And how do we get to the hippie dream, the utopian vision? How do we do it? Well, if I look at the world right now, shut the fuck up. We're not getting there. So that means we have to mine the unknown. And to begin the mining of the unknown, there has to be some sense that there's a vein of gold in there.
Well, there is, and it's like I think that, yeah, the story that's being presented to people, part of, if you zoom out again and you look at both of us as ants, what is our function in the colony? One of our functions is to present left field ideas, or to kind of challenge things a bit, provide, bring in information on things like Buddhism that maybe people aren't hearing, or magic, and it's like the solutions have all been given. You can go read Buckminster Fuller, right? You can look at like even meditation. Okay, it's like maybe it's not that complicated. Maybe it really is like people need to meditate. And I love when Trump was on Lex Fridman's show, he was like telling him that he should make sure to legalize psychedelics and things like that. It was so funny. But the techniques are there, the systems are there. It's just that there's not multi-billion-dollar media machines behind them pushing them on people all the time for obvious reasons.
That's right.
So, but now with social media, obviously we have a incredibly powerful, we have a opportunity to not just come up with new ideas, but to resurface great ideas from the past that weren't tried because of, and I don't mean communism, but things like Buckminster Fuller and things like that, ideas that weren't fully examined or tried.
The Buckminster Fuller problem is like, there's ways to look at the system, analyze it, and come up with new ways of moving energy around. But the implementation of that's where we run into problems, because the part of the environment that's human beings, you got to get that part of the environment to change. And so to me, I think the initial step is to re-empower people who've been disempowered by the propaganda into thinking that they have no impact in the world other than their carbon emissions, their farts in their cars.
It's a lie, because nothing could be further from the truth. If you have a cell phone, you have more power than anybody on the planet up to like 10 years ago.
Not to mention, like, if you ever looked up, like, if you could like split the atoms in one human being, how big that nuclear explosion would be. I think it would like blow a crater in North America, one person.
Wow. Okay.
So you have so much energy in you. I could be wrong about that. I mean, I don't know.
I don't think so.
I never want to find out.
It'd probably blow up the whole planet.
Dude, if people find a way to do that, we're fucked. There won't be the fucking performative nervous breakdown. There's gonna be, I'm gonna send my atoms apart and blow up North America. But the point is, so the first step is not, I'm gonna fix you. You need to fix yourself. You're wrong. I'm right. The first step is you have the ability to either be the one that extracts the data set that we're looking for here from the unknown, articulate it in an actionable way that isn't polarizing but unifying, or the very act of believing in that data set could theoretically create a higher probability that someone else stumbles upon it. Just the resonance field,
I think so,
created by your belief. And then,
I mean, I've done that multiple times in my life. So absolutely.
So that's it. You can, forgive me, Jason, I'm going to do a Burning Man thing here. When I came in for Burning Man early, because somebody told me that's the real Burning Man, as they call it, the build.
I went to Burning Man early once, but they wouldn't let me in, so I had to lay in the parking lot with a Walmart blanket over me for like 2 days.
Sucks.
Yeah, it really sucked.
Well,
because I hitched a ride, I didn't have anything that like a car to be in, and I was just like laying in the dust with a blanket over me for 2 days.
The occasional waft of DMT coming over the parking lot. So like, I think if like one way to the way you said, reality has changed. The story changed. So that means, what if we all adopt a new story just for fun? And I don't know what that story is, and you can invent your own story if you want, but let's say we're in for the build here. It's the age of Horus. We've come in for the build. You are actively participating in the setting the stage, midwifery, whatever you want to call it, for the next Buddha, Messiah, idea, time machine, whatever.
Yeah.
That's what you're doing here. Now, there's obscurations. There's all kinds of ancient, antiquated, dying, pathetically dying, terrified power structures right now that would love to get into your head and make you feel like you're a useless piece of shit.
Right.
You can't do anything. But ignore them because you don't have to do anything about that. They're clearly on the way out, and they're not going out happy.
It seems so. That's a very positive thing.
They're doing
nobody wants to watch MSNBC anymore. It's like,
oh, their numbers have dropped precipitously.
Forget it. It's over. Nobody trusts them, and they shouldn't. And that's not a partisan thing. It's just it's an old form of media. All the sports funding got pulled from it, so
that's on the way out, and great. But I think the task at hand right now is, if you believe that you don't know everything, but yet you believe there's a possibility encoded within the data matrix of the universe to draw out something. I don't know what it is. Could be technology, could be a psychedelic, could be an idea. I don't know. To draw that out, articulate it. And that idea could do the very same thing all the other great ideas did. And we are living like though it is a tumultuous geopolitical time. You walk in your house and flip the fucking light switch on and light turns on. Right. So you could be part of that. And you should actively be participating in an interrogation of the unknown, even if that interrogation is just believing it's out there somewhere. And then, of course, meditation comes in. But to me, that's the move. Start listening. Because you want to know what the cloaked spaceship is hovering over the planet right now. It's everything we don't know.
Yeah.
And its emissaries are the new ideas that land in the human mind and then crystallize into time space. Become part of that.
Yeah. Well, become part. Join the dance. To use that metaphor. And this is what magic can do for people. This is only one technique, but how is it that we live in a time with more material wealth and power, particularly communication power, than ever before, and yet people feel powerless, miserable, discarded, helpless,
I know.
Which is a lie. None of that is true, but of course, it's easy if you're getting that message to get into that feedback loop, and next thing you know, you're scrolling memes about wanting to die on Instagram, which just seems to be the number one art form of younger people.
That's sad.
Other than Skibbity Toilet, which I fucking love. But
how do we combine them?
I'm not sure we want the answer to that. But just to say, actually, it doesn't need to be ideological, and it shouldn't be. Just to say, like, you know what, I have a say. I can participate. You have all the tools available to you, and just to remind people of that, because we want a participatory society. We want a society of people at their best. We want a heroic society.
Yeah.
We don't want a self-loathing, self-hating society. Yeah. And I think that the culture seems to be going more in that direction now. I even saw people on Twitter saying that, that the moment the zeitgeist began to change is when Top Gun Maverick came out.
What the fuck?
Because it's giving a heroic self, a sense that maybe you can win. You don't have to like hate yourself because of who you are, and that's a very, as I think we both know, growing up in the 90s, so much of the messaging then was so bad too. So it's just this self-loathing, suicidal, Kurt Cobain, just self-hatred.
Yeah.
And just to say, you don't need to do that. You can be the hero.
You are.
You already are, right? You're just participating in a lie that does not benefit you.
And this is it, man. And then right from that moment on, it's like, dude, anyone, regardless of how idiotic and potentially fascist or tyrannical their efforts were initially to try to make a better world, we need a forgiveness day. Those were people who had their heroic impulse hijacked by a political system, and now the political system has left a lot of them just on fucking TikTok having temper tantrums. There's no support. So it's
we can do forgiveness after the show trials for certain individuals, but sure.
You can do them during the show trials. But I'm talking about like, dude, and if you're like, and also forgiveness for the people who won, who are gloating. It's like
Right.
the move here is to not disengage from activism, not disengage from participation, but to disengage from the propaganda that leads to disempowerment, division, and breaking people up into
Right.
teams that are implicitly aggressive, and to find a way to jump into the real party, which is all of us who are out there, even in our lazy, weak ways, trying to have a conversation with the abyss, with the unknown, and see if we can start grabbing those beautiful signals that it emits from time to time that turn into great works of art, that turn into Top Gun Maverick.
Yeah. Well, that was, I mean, that's what creativity is. It's what having a kid is. It's what magic is. It's a rabbit out of a hat. You pull something out of nothing, right? I love your phrase, interrogating the unknown.
Yeah.
And that is a call to heroism. That is a call to adventure. We have the potential and the ability to make this, it's already amazing, but we have the potential and the ability to make this, not just this country, but this planet unbelievable. We have Elon Musk taking us to Mars.
Yeah.
Why that's a bad thing is beyond me.
Why does that upset people? That's very frustrating for people.
I mean, it's my point on that is like, quit fucking poking holes in the lifeboats, guys. Like this is ridiculous. But that's, we can make this world anything we want it to be, because the ultimate resource is human beings. The ultimate resource is human ingenuity, creativity, and will. And resources are meaningless compared to human willpower. They really are. And this isn't woo. It's like, just look at history, you know, and it's in a negative sense too. You know, it's like, the communist, you know, Russia was overthrown in a communist revolution by what, 6 people at the beginning? Hitler was an artist from nowhere, who the entire world history was changed for the worse by, you know, and but at the same time, then you have people like Buckminster Fuller, who was an engineer who'd been laid off, who was going to kill himself, who decided, what if instead of killing myself, I dedicate the rest of my life to seeing what one person can do with no resources to benefit everyone. And he came up with some incredible things. And the whole history of the world is not, I'm sorry, it's not about economic forces. It's not about historical materialism. It's not about depersonalized flows of money and groups of people. It is about that stuff too, but it's very often comes down to individual choices made by individual people, and not necessarily people in power.
Dude,
Rosa Parks, right? Okay.
There you go.
So
just step one. And what I love that you're talking about, baby in the basket. Just a baby in a basket. Remember, there will be blood.
Wait,
well, no, there will be blood. You know,
wait, I don't remember that part.
At the end,
all I remember is I'll drink your milkshake.
His kid comes to see him, and he, like, you know, is in his degraded state, late stage capitalism, lost everything, has everything simultaneously. His boy comes to see him, and he throws his boy out of his house, yells at him, "You're just a baby in a basket, baby in a basket." But like, or Jesus in the manger, Buddha leaves the palace, goes into the forest. These are all of them are hints. The hint is it comes from the unexpected. Right. Nobody expects the king to be in the manger. No one expects the basket baby. Nobody expects the prince to leave the palace. So this is this creates an action, and the action is like, number one, if you're in a fucking manger, don't think, oh, I'm a useless piece of shit, my crappy apartment, I can't do anything, and blah blah blah. It's like, dude, every great thing came from the unknown. You were actually part of the unexpected at that point. And then, two, if you're in the algorithmic, self-reflective, hedonic, fucking digital palace where all of your whims and desires are amplified and reflected back to you, where your biases are not challenged but confirmed via algorithmic input because it's tuning you into other people who agree with you, leave that palace, go into the forest with the miscreants, listen to the weirdos who are telling you how to do yoga, stretch, whatever the fuck it is.
Go to the wrong side of the tracks.
Go to the wrong side of the tracks, baby, just like Jesus did. And, you know, and I think, you know, if we are going to extract the E equals MC squared of the Christian faith. It is seek ye first the kingdom of heaven and all things will follow. So to me, the kingdom of heaven is the imminent unknown. He's asking you to draw in that which is not known into the known. That's the kingdom of heaven. What is heaven? Perfect. It's not golden streets. It's that moment you're walking down a sidewalk and suddenly your neurosis, the dark storm clouds of your neurotic mind, just for whatever reason, clear.
Yeah.
And you're fine, not
Right.
in danger. Everything's okay. And look at how you behave in that mind state versus the neurotic mind state.
No, absolutely. I mean, it's like, as anyone who's with experience of meditation finds out, hopefully, you can be the richest person on planet Earth and live in hell in your mind, and you can have nothing and be in heaven in your mind. It's not a glib answer. It's true. And in a sense, your mind state not only determines your actions, it determines what reality you're living in. And this is, I think, the thing about the Buddhist 6 realms and things like that.
Fuck yeah.
What yuga you're in can change based on what your mentality.
You got it.
Real. And with one shift in your mind, you can go to resourcelessness to resourcefulness. And I have a weird job.
You do.
Of course, people are like, magic is silly. So magic is the most powerful force on the planet. And let me qualify that. I came up with my all-time ultimate definition of magic, which is, do you remember imaginary numbers?
Sure, of course. Yeah.
Okay. So, for those who don't, the idea of an imaginary number is the square root of -1, which you can't do. It's not possible to do. But it turns out that the square root of -1 is necessary to solve a lot of equations. They represent it, which is the lowercase I. So think about this: an imaginary thing that is necessary for reality.
Yeah.
Well, okay. Magic is the imaginary number in life's equation.
Cool.
And that doesn't mean robes and fucking wands and pentagrams and things like that. It's like, it could, that's fun. But everything that exists, us, we only exist because somebody had the idea to first, in their imagination, maybe I want a kid, or maybe like this, I imagine this, or computers, or every flight. Everything existed in the imagination, and of course was laughed at until the person made it real. Magic is the act of pulling a rabbit out of a hat. It's taking something imaginary and making it real. And it's not just that that's a nice trick. That's literally how the only reason anything exists outside of the pure biological whatever necessities of human life.
Yeah.
And it's like, you read interviews with Arnold Schwarzenegger, and one of the reasons other than steroids, that he got so jacked was he would visualize the reps that he couldn't do, and then he could do them. Or, I mean, how many stories have we heard of musicians who were, or rock stars who were painfully shy until they came up with an imaginary identity for themselves, like Alice Cooper, Marilyn Manson, or whatever it is. And then they acted as that imaginary person, and then they became that person. Yeah. Sometimes to their detriment. Heath Ledger, to his detriment. But that's the magical process. It's that simple. It's taking something imaginary and making it real. And that is more powerful. There's nothing more powerful on earth than human creativity and ingenuity, because everything else comes from it.
That's it.
That's the most powerful force on earth. And, it requires discipline. It requires sticking to a plan, and it requires a lot of faith, which is a pretty dirty word, has become a dirty word.
Another co-opted word.
Right. But, this is one of the reasons that I do what it is that I do, which is that unlocking people is our biggest natural resource.
Faith is the dynamite you use to interrogate the unknown.
Yeah.
Faith
is even more. Faith is even stronger than magic. It's on the same spectrum and continuum.
I mean, it's the same thing. I mean, this is. I'm telling you, man. This to me, while you are doing whatever it is to make the world better, however high-minded that may be, if you start working with some imaginary numbers, Or if you're not doing anything and you're,
Well, you're just imagining how horrible everything and how powerless you are, and I'm imagining everyone hates me, and I'm talking about myself too, because I can get into this. Everyone hates me, nobody likes me, the whole world's against me, everything's falling apart, I'm gonna die, this sucks.
I call
You can
that
do
looking at the blindfold. And,
that's a good
you
one.
know, so if you're staring into the blindfold, that's what you're going to see, shit like that. First step is to realize there's something outside the blindfold. And the problem is, in this case, the blindfold is not something you just pull off your head. It's literally encoded neurologically, maybe epigenetically into your entire system.
By corn syrup.
What?
By corn syrup.
It's corn syrup. You got, you know what? You
Gotta
beat
get
me
them
to the
peptides.
punch. That's where I was headed. Corn syrup. Jesus said, seek ye first the kingdom of heaven, and to find the kingdom of heaven, stop drinking that corn syrup.
What about is there such a thing as low fructose corn syrup?
Dude, I have no fucking idea anything about corn syrup, but I will tell you something I relish right now. Since I was a young, blossoming hippie, I would always say, dude, why the fuck are they putting fluoride in the water? And I was mocked. I was made fun of. They're like, what's wrong with you? Why don't you start wearing a tinfoil hat? And even though I would say things like, okay, you come to my house. And I'm like, want a glass of water? Yeah. Shall I put some fluoride in it? You're going to say, hell no. But the you know what I mean? The federal government's like, just fucking put a waste into the water because we don't want them to have cavities, even though there's fluoride in the toothpaste. Oh, I'm relishing that. I'm relishing the studies coming out now where they're showing, oh, actually it makes kids less intelligent and it's not woo-woo.
Yeah. From what I understand, I may get the details on this right, but I think one of the reasons why fluoride was put into the water supply is it's like some type of industrial byproduct.
It's a waste. It's industrial waste.
Of nuclear shit. So, and they couldn't get rid of it, so they just dumped it into the water for people to drink.
Amazing.
You want to hear a goofy story about that, by the way? I actually went fishing with RFK Jr. when I was a kid.
No way.
When I was like 10. It's like the most random story. Because my dad is a journalist, and my dad was working on a book about fishing, and he's super into fishing. So we ended up going fishing with him on the bay of in San Diego, and he was definitely an interesting guy. My major memory, but it was hilarious. He was super risk taking.
Yeah,
that was my take on him. Like, he's very into doing dangerous things. But my major memory of hanging out with him was just looking at my shoes the entire time, because you can imagine, I was like 10 years old. It's like, oh, we're going to meet a Kennedy. And so I'm like, so what do I, and it's just like, this is like unfathomable to me. So I wore on this fishing boat out on the ocean, like dress shoes that I got for like 8th grade graduation or something like that. So I'm sitting there just wearing leather dress shoes, feeling like a total idiot the entire time, staring at my shoes and hoping he wouldn't notice. He probably still remembers this.
That's dude, I'm telling you, everyone's on his ass about that bear troll. That's the funniest trick ever. Take a fucking dead bear carcass and throw it in Central Park so people think there's bears in New York. That's
did you hear the whale thing where he was like, there was another story coming out where, like, I guess he is, this actually warmed my heart because this sounds similar to stories from my family but just more extreme, where like he's I think he went whale, he was with his daughter and they found a dead whale on the beach, so he decided to strap it to the roof of the car and drive home so he could get the skull or something. So he was driving there with his teenage daughter, with the windows down, and just like whale juice is like flying into the car while they're going down the freeway.
That's a real dad. That's a dad
that's
move.
A dad move.
That's a move that gets you in the doghouse. You pull up to the house and fucking
oh my
dead
god
whale
for like a year at least, I'm sure.
I would be doomed, but I would do it.
Yeah, you know what? I whatever. Like, obviously he's a complex guy, but like, man, if he can get rid of corn syrup and fluoride, good. Now, I'm not a fan of his vaccines cause autism bullshit, but I think that if we have somebody, like, we do need to look at the public health system in America.
I heard him say this. He was like, when I was trying to get mercury out of fish, nobody said I was anti-fish. And
well, that's a good point.
And it's like, I think his point, at least like
I mean, he did a lot of damage to the autistic community.
I think his front-facing point right now is that we need more transparency when it comes not just to vaccines, but to all medications.
Well, I agree with that. Absolutely.
And I think that he is so convinced, based on the data sets he's been looking at that there's data that once the public catches wind of it, it's going to revise the way that we
I bet.
make vaccines, and
I
it's
bet.
going to revise the way that we give vaccines, the scheduling of vaccines. And ultimately,
I'm all for transparency, obviously.
Bottom line, it seems like that's what he's going to.
Absolutely.
And if that,
we should know. It's like, you know, if you're mandated to take them, you should fucking know.
That's right.
And particularly after the COVID era, it's just like,
because I want to know. I want to know everything about them.
Yeah.
And I
particularly if you're giving vaccines to your kids, don't you want to know what's in them? Now, obviously, vaccines do not cause autism. But, you know, the thing is, that's just one issue. It's like, you know how people are. They'll find one thing that somebody got wrong and now just dismiss everything they're saying.
The main,
that's not good.
How can, like, the main thing is we really can only expect distorted conclusions if we don't have all the data, and if there's a culture where we've already figured everything out about vaccines when we haven't.
Right.
And so once we and this needs to be applied to everything. It should just be like, look, let's fucking look into it. I mean, what I've always loved about science is when you're wrong as a scientist, you still move things forward because you just save some other asshole a bunch of time trying to test your hypothesis.
Right. That's what people need to realize too. It's like, and I think people do realize this, that science, quote unquote, is not science often in this, particularly when it involves things like pharma and food. It's paid for by corporations to get the result they want. That is fundamentally anti-science.
Right.
You know, when you have Monsanto paying for 3,000 studies to show that Monsanto food's just great, that's not science, that's propaganda. And, you know, I feel about science the same way that Gandhi felt about Western civilization. It would be a very good idea. But the scientific process has been co-opted worldwide, I think, also by the defense industry. And the reason, and when it comes to vaccines, I assume it's like, I don't know, but I assume it's like food, where the only reason, you know, you can't, there's a lot of stuff about our food that you can't know. Like for a while, at least, I think this has changed, but you couldn't label food whether it was GMO or not. And the only reason is lobbyists. The only reason, because they don't, you know, the lobbyists said you can't put non-GMO, you can't even label foods as non-GMO because this suggests that the GMO food is bad and that will cut into sales.
And, you know, also,
it's just like that's not how things should work. You know, that's state capture.
A lot of medicines probably need to be revisited based on our current understandings of the wild variety in the human genome, and that different people respond to things differently. That a universal approach to medicine, particularly vaccines, does not address the fact that people have different computers they're running the OS on.
Yeah.
And until we really start looking into reactions that people have to vaccines, not as some anomalous thing, but is there something connected to their DNA? Who knows what? Then we will have safer vaccines just by doing an analysis of each human person's set of genetics.
Well, the idea of genetically targeted medicine is, if it's done with full consent and proper testing, that's really exciting, right? The idea that we can edit our genetic code, I think that's great. The idea that we could completely, I'm not a Luddite about that. I am against doing it to people against their will, though. Without naming names, it's just like, how do we know that's going to work in the long run?
Roll. I guess in that case, it's roll the fucking dice,
right?
But also, again, the human angle here gets left out, and that's the other problem. Is I'm sorry, regardless of whatever data sets are floating out there, you're not going to bludgeon a nervous parent into getting her kid a fucking vaccine by saying she's an idiot because she's worried about the vaccine, which is has been the stance.
Well, you might be able to bludgeon that person, but now you've blown all of your political capital with them forever, which is another huge reason why the DNC lost. Let's face it.
And so
you've blown your. It's I assume it's like parenting, where it's if you force a kid to do something, you might be able to force them, but good luck having them trust you after.
Oh my god! And especially if their kid has a reaction to the fucking vaccine. It's like,
Right.
dude, this is the thing. What we do know is per any given population, there will be a vaccine reaction. Some kids get real fucking sick and some people die.
Right.
And so we know that. Now, asking a parent to enter a genetic lottery and roll the dice in the name of keeping their kid from becoming a super spreader, I'm sorry, man. I'm not, no spoiler, watch The Last of Us. Dude.
That's one of my, I love those games.
Just
one and two.
Give me a break.
Unfairly maligned. Last of Us 2, one of the best games ever.
You're asking a terrified parent to like, to turn their child into essentially some kind of sacrifice to protect
a lot of people were very on board with that.
Not gonna happen. I'm saying let's mitigate the anxiety of parents by number one, understanding what these reactions are that apparently are being obfuscated by the fucking the big pharma, and let's see if we can do an analysis. And they're afraid to say what's going on because they don't want to get sued. So let's come up with a mechanism of transparency that actually brings out all data sets and allows us to understand why this shit happens. Is it batches? Is it a lack of regulation when the things are being created? Is it something that happens in transport? Is it something related to the genetics? Is it, who knows? Let's discover that.
Right.
And is there additives and shit that we could find better things? That's the main thing. I think that's what he wants to do.
Well, I'm completely for that. And I think that should be a nonpartisan issue. I think that one thing that we can hopefully all agree on as Americans is the medical system fucking sucks in this country. Ugh. It is a fucking nightmare.
It's a shit show. But I'll tell you, man, this is like the other thing that I've been doing is sort of looking at the meta. Like, okay, what are the similarities, positive and negative, in the teams? And so I know it sounds so like
they're politicians who want to control people.
Well, no, let's take Rachel Maddow and Sean Hannity.
Oh, you know that, like, basically, like when Tucker Carlson got sued for the Dominion voting machine, they basically showed in the deposition that he and Rachel Maddow are the same person. Like, they both hang out with Roger Ailes. They're both understand that they're entertainers, not journalists. It's just like, it doesn't.
But what? Okay, so that being said, so then you look at what Rachel Maddow and Sean Hannity do, and I like this because it's similar to like pointing out that Satanists are Christians. It's brutal. It's in it, and you can brutalize both sides not by even talking about their ideas, but the similarities. And when you start writing down the list of similarities between Rachel Maddow and Sean Hannity, it is spectacular in the they're so, I'm not saying their belief structure. I'm saying, number one, imminent threat revealers.
Their character structure,
They always must reveal an imminent threat. Every show, the main blast you get to the amygdala that gives you the rush is an imminent threat shall be revealed.
Well, is that them or is that just the format of the news? Because they, the moment, I can pinpoint the moment our society started falling apart, which is they did a study that revealed that fears or anger is the most viral emotion. So and this was like 2014. And that's when everyone started pushing. I mean, not that they weren't before, but that's when they started pushing that button hardcore.
Well, listen, they're clearly emissaries of the corporation they're working for. But they're performing a ritual of fear. It's a fear ritual. It's really not a fear ritual. What they're doing is an attention ritual designed to keep a person sitting in the couch when the commercial comes on. That's what it is. So really they're attention harvesters, and they use fear to grab the attention. And because that's their goal, they have these incredible similarities, not just in like, not just in the fact that they're both like literal fear mongers, they're selling fear, but that they are like linguistically, rhythmically, the aesthetic of the show itself. And this is what I really love, is like, it's very similar in the sense that inevitably there is like an alarm, a trumpet, an air raid siren. You know what I mean? Something in the midst of
the flashing infographics.
We've got to cut away to Wilter Binkle. he was standing in front of a plastics factory fire. But it's like, so all of these, so basically like the way it works is I guess you could say, because we were just talking about this, you're kind of getting your amygdala edged, right? They're both edging your amygdala, right? And so the grand orgasm is the final revelation or more, the most importantly, here's what you should be most afraid of today and why. And then after they disclose whatever the fucking thing you're supposed to be afraid of that day, they will be like, for reaction, here's someone you never heard of from the Institute of Fear.
Right.
And that person will then, just when you think it can't get even more terrifying, that person will find a new angle within the terror where you should be even more afraid. And then they both do the identical thing, man. It's the
well, yeah. I mean, having worked in the media a lot, it's like it's just like they're news media professionals. They have the same job. They're doing that's the job. And I think people in the media are pretty cynical, and I think they see it as not in like they're out to get people way, but just in like this is how it is, and they're all competing for ratings, and like I don't buy for a second that like that like all the Fox and CNN people like hook up like on the weekends and shit like that, so they're all in the same business. But I have a great technique for getting out of your amygdala when it comes to the news and world events is
don't watch.
There's that, but I recommend learn how to look at the stock market. And I don't mean that on a moment to moment basis. I know it's a little weird. And I don't mean that in like go make money on the stock market. I suck at trading. That fucks up my amygdala. But if you look at the long-term economic data for the United States, maybe you get access to the charts, which you can do. You look at, I'm not saying the stock market is the only indicator of things being good or not, because obviously it's not. It's decoupled from wages. But let's just take this as one metric. You look at the S&P 500, which is the index of the top 500 companies in America, from like 1960 till now, and what you see is
right.
And those MERS, like for instance, like it's and then COVID is like and then it rewrites and keeps going, and it's like, and then look at that. So like everything's basically fine. And then you go look at the news, particularly if you look at the financial news, like if you look, because at the financial news, like Wall Street Journal or Market Watch does the same thing, where it's like, this stock's crashing, this stock's tanking, everything's falling apart, buy, sell, buy, sell. And it's just like, and then you compare that to the long term, let's just say, consider the long-term analytics on America. Yeah. It's just like, why are you concerned about anything? Like it not in this way. You're zoomed in, and these media companies are keeping you zoomed in on minutia to do exactly what you're saying, but it's not representative of reality.
Well, no,
at all.
And especially when you realize it's like, I'll tell
even if you look at your own life, there have been ups and downs, but you
always the downs. Well, that's like if you find yourself in a catastrophic situation.
But often those are the most important times in life, because I've learned the most when I've been at my lowest.
Well, but also like, when I'm looking at times like truly catastrophic situations, and you look, and yet somehow in that catastrophic situation, you realize you're fine. You might be scared, sad, upset, but you realize like, oh, here is the unexpected horror, and yet somehow I'm okay.
The greatest gift of the worst situations in life is gratitude, and learning that, I was a, very, arrogant, ego-driven, running around with my head on fire, young boy wizard, into my early 20s, until my life completely fell apart because of that. And I got to the point where I'd just been thrown out of Canada, and I didn't have anything I had no physical possessions other than the clothes on my back.
You got thrown out of Canada? I'm sorry to come.
It's fuck Canada. This is, oh, by the way, my plan for the Trump administration, Trump should invade Canada.
Why?
Why not? Have you looked at them?
Dude, I was just up there. I love the Canadians. Drugs are decriminalized there. Some dude brought me a bag.
No. Here's the thing about Canada. It's awesome, and you think it's paradise. until they suddenly go cold on you. And when they go cold on you, it's fucking brutal.
I didn't think it was
They
paradise.
they have an edge to them.
But I'll tell you this guy did bring me a bag of drugs that is
I'm just kidding about
is apparently legal there, and which was
you can buy ayahuasca like from dispensaries.
Dude, he brought this bag was enough psychedelics to keep me going for the next 20 years. And it was tragic because I obviously cannot bring a bag of psychedelics from Canada
You
to
FedEx it.
Texas. I'm never going to do that.
Man.
But it was a really sad, bittersweet moment going through this bag and just like, wait, what is this? Oh, that's LSD. Wait, what? This is like a Chanel bottle of LSD. You know what I mean? Like, what the fuck? And then it's like, well, what is this?
Chanel number 23.
Well, those are like mushrooms, but these mushrooms have been extracted in a way based on like times of year. Yeah. And so anyway,
I love drug hobbits who just show up and give you drugs.
And what a sweetie. But what a sad thing. Anyway, yeah, man, I get it, dude. I listen. Canada is going through it right now.
Yeah, I mean they well,
they hate Trudeau, by the way. It's not like anyone likes that motherfucker. He's like statistically, you look at the data, people are fucking pissed at that guy.
How is he still in office?
Dude,
he's been in office for a long ass time.
He's very good at staying in office.
What the hell?
But you can't post.
Do you remember the blackface picture of him that came out with the turban on?
And that did nothing.
It's like, what the hell?
But in Canada, you can't post news stories on Instagram. Did you know that?
What?
If you post, it could just be like a news story, not your commentary, just a news story. If you have to be licensed to post news on social media to combat misinformation.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. I mean, when all that misinformation stuff started happening in 2015, 2016, around the time of after Gamergate, I was doing a blog. This is around the time I first met you, Ultra Culture, the blog, which was, we were doing citizen journalism, putting out stories that the mainstream media wasn't picking up. And it wasn't like a huge blog, but in doing that really seriously, I was able to really understand how the news media works. And it's just somebody picks up a story and it gets passed up a chain all the way to the top. But so many things get ignored. When they came, the minute they came in and they were like, oh, we have a misinformation problem on social media. Like, we need to crack down on misinformation. Now, okay, Russians, yes. But the result of that is what they're really saying is we want to retain our control over what people see.
100%.
You can't be the media.
Hillary Clinton said that. She just came out and said.
Yeah, she came out and said that.
What did she say? We lose total control.
Right.
She literally just said it out loud.
God forbid. Right. It's like the whole history, the invention of social media and particularly YouTube is possibly bigger than the invention of the printing press and the Gutenberg Bible. Dude, which they have the original one here, right?
By the way, filtering misinformation out of the internet is like taking sugar out of a cupcake. I like the misinformation.
Right.
I don't want my internet misinformation free. I love the warped, distorted data sets.
Yeah, I think that a good middle path on that, and if people want to critique this, please, because there's probably things I haven't thought about. There's probably factors, and I'd like people to critique this. But I think that the good middle path there needs to be like a safe lane internet, like a third place, which is for kids. There is a censored internet for kids. Because at the end of the day, you don't want kids going on fucking 8chan.
Hell no.
Or having pedos come after them, and all that stuff is on the internet. And so, but also you don't want to completely censor. You don't want to censor and kick out political ideas. I'm an old free speech absolutist. Everything should be there for people to look at, so that ideas, even like the Daily Stormer, okay, it's like that stuff should be out there for people to see and critique, because it goes back to what we were talking about earlier, where if you make something taboo and you push something into the shadows, you empower it. You empower it. That's a psychological principle. Freud proved that, so and it's been proven again and again.
So, well, look, let me tell you, if like you want to go to a place Where you will not be traumatized, tormented, and upset by misinformation, might I invite you to a little place called Blue Sky.
Jesus. I'm grateful even for blue sky.
Safe, not free. Not free.
Blue sky is like a furry gangbang. It's X for furries. I'm convinced of it.
Why? I like furries. What furries are wild, dude. Like I've always had a soft. Let me tell you, furries are.
I'm fur phobic.
Are you fur phobic?
I'm a little bit fur phobic.
Why?
I kind of feel like adults that dress like stuffed animals. Maybe I'm wrong, but might have some other issues going on. Maybe shouldn't be around kids. I don't. Maybe I'm wrong about that.
Let me tell you something.
I'd err on the side of caution on that one.
Here's where I started tuning into the furryverse. It was because there was a post on 4chan poll, and I was impressed by the post because the post.
How often are you on poll?
It doesn't matter.
Okay.
But the post on 4chan poll was hilarious in the sense that somehow the furries had managed to offend 4chan poll. And it wasn't just one person. It was like full consensus. Furries. So to see that 4chan poll had been offended by the depravity of this group of people.
Wait, what were they doing that was so offensive other than existing?
They were, you know how 4chan poll is. It's like it veers from like, complete schizophrenic rambling to what appears to be really insightful political analysis to like white fucking supremacy to like trolling to like whatever. But it was the uniformity of disgust that seemed anomalous in the sense that like they really were just freaked out by the furries. And so then I started looking into them because it's like, dude, if they're upsetting the troll lords, like what the fuck is going on here?
Maybe like if I diss furries, it will just make them stronger. Maybe I should watch out for that.
Dude, you better watch out. But I'll tell you,
I'm gonna be in a furocracy.
That led me to furry porn.
Oh, because it was just that, right?
I wanted to confirm they're depraved.
Okay.
Because I think there's something.
Science.
There can be something quite beautiful about depravity. I'm talking like Caligula level. You know what I mean? So I found furry porn. They are freaks. It'll blow your wig back. Like, and I don't mean just freaks in the sense of like kinky, fetishistic sex, whatever. I'm saying apparently, and again, my sample set was like maybe 3 porn videos on X Hamster that seem like amateur furry porn, so it's not really scientific. But the complete, perfect shamelessness of the furries.
Maybe they're free. Maybe that's they've achieved final enlightenment.
Well, this was the accusation from 4chan polls that they're nihilists. They're the ultimate.
My take on furries
degeneracy.
My take on furries is just it's humans in their first incarnation as humans.
Dude, I really don't know.
And they're still at animal consciousness.
It's whatever it is wild and is so outside of default reality. And somehow
maybe I shouldn't knock it. Yeah, maybe I should try it.
No, I wouldn't go that far. But it's so simultaneously okay. Like we've all seen The Shining.
Yeah.
And most people's first encounter with a furry is that micro scene where I think it's a fucking rabbit blowing somebody, and it's horrifying.
Maybe that's why people hate furries.
Dude, no, that was a furry that made of course the Overlook Hotel had some population of furries, but it's the convergence of mascots, custom-made animal outfits with this underbelly of just fucking, which apparently they do.
Yiffing, they call it.
What do they call it?
Yiffing.
See that? Dude, that's so fucked up. Yiffing?
Yiffing.
Ugh.
Y-I-F-F.
It makes you shudder and horror.
Google it or don't.
Yiffing. It's like the whole thing. It's this incredible combination of personal autonomy, self-expression, going outside of default reality, mixed in with like shudder-inducing Bacchanalian Hieronymus Bosch style fucking at convention centers.
Oh yeah, well this is because I grew up in San Diego, so I went to the Comic-Con every year, and there were always furries. So I knew about furries even into the 90s, and it was just like, who the fuck are these people? Like this.
Well, they're not people.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Stop with that. Don't fucking force them into your human grid.
It is interesting though, right? Where it's like when you make something taboo, maybe even furries, it's like when you make something taboo, it's, Freud wrote a book about that, totem and taboo. You make it, you empower it, you give it magical power. This is why, like, one of the things in magic is you're not supposed to talk about it, never reveal your pentacles, as they say. And it's not necessarily because when you talk about magic, it's basically meaningless to people.
Right.
It just doesn't mean anything. It sounds like whatever. It's like some specialist thing, or it's schizophrenic or whatever. But there's power in keeping something secret and taboo.
Yes.
And in a lot of ways, magic is no longer taboo in our society. You're welcome. But that kind of disempowers it a little bit. So
100%.
There is a bit of a side effect. But
put your pentacles in a Tweety Bird costume.
Yeah.
And let them fuck.
But people need to be careful about that, though. And I think that the entire thing of the left to deplatform, to censor all of this, they need to be careful, because if you go back in history, you look at let's say the 60s, right? There was Radio Luxembourg, pirate radio. It was off of sending pirate radio into England, so people were hearing all this rock music and stuff, and that became, and it fueled the counterculture. And then there were counterculture zines like the Berkeley Barb and like the hippie press, which was considered degenerate by the population. Those people all ended up becoming, the people who were into that, were part of that kind of secret elite in a way, ended up becoming the managerial class of society. People like Hillary Clinton, the Clintons, like, were part of that generation. Richard Branson, right? So you look around now and it's like, well, what are they making taboo? There's a good chance that's going to be, well, I mean, you see, maybe it's a faster cycle now because now look at the government, but there's a good chance that things like, they're just empowering things like that. And then if we look at America within a couple decades, it's going to be like Poltards or the managerial class. It's possible, so.
The worst thing.
I don't know.
Certainly make it fun to work at your office. You just can't believe anything anyone says.
This is kind of how it is now, though.
Dude, I have embarrassed myself so many, I'm such a dipshit, such a dummy. And it's so many times I get tricked on there, so many times, just like a cat, like just chasing a laser.
You get tricked on 4chan?
Well, yeah, because like
I haven't even looked at 4chan for since COVID.
Listen, if you have any kind of ability to,
I'm an old fag, as they say.
You are, me too.
Yeah.
But if you can,
I've been on the chans a long time, not anymore. But
if you can withstand the brutality of the place and recognize that like so many things are just well-crafted trolls that are posted there.
QAnon was a troll that started on fucking Poll. You know that, right? They were like, how can we fuck with boomers? And they made up QAnon.
Dude, they're chaos lords.
Yeah, they are.
But yeah.
All these people believe it now.
Well, they'll get you. They shall get you. But yeah, man, I think that what we're seeing now is like some kind of Old Testament style justice, which is, live by the cancel, die by the cancel. And what we're seeing now is that somehow these people that were driving the culture bus have been relegated to the back of the bus. They've been shoved.
It's their own fault.
And they...
Because the other thing they did is they turfed out all their interesting people. They turfed out me. I spent my 20s practically killing myself working for those causes. And I still believe in anti-war and all that. But it's like, they turfed me out. Oh, you're canceled. You're a white male. We're not going to pay you. Unpaid internships. Like, get out of here. It's like... They pushed away all their most intelligent people.
Many stories like that. And then so now what's happened is, at first they were these arbiters of social justice, bringing the fucking ban. They were applying Redditor mod techniques to you know what I mean? They were like banning people not from Reddit. They were fucking banning people from society, and it was working.
Wasn't Ghislaine Maxwell a Reddit mod?
So they say.
Yeah.
So they say.
Of like a lot of subreddits.
It's so weird. But the takeaway here is all they've done is driven themselves into the place they were trying to drive everyone else. And now they have to find a way to get the fuck out of this dark hell corner that they've put themselves.
They're doubling down and going to blue sky. It's just like they're retreating further into an echo chamber.
Dude, I must say, and you talked about it earlier, my favorite thing right now on the internet is the Twitter departure announcement.
I just posted about this today.
These are
like the 15 step. I'm leaving. I'm really leaving now. I'm not. This is a dumpster fire. Fuck Elon. I'm out. I'm going to Blues. Here's my Blues. It's just like fucking nobody cares.
I love them because they are written in the way you might write a letter if you were leaving your wife. They are written with such gravity, as though like the world will stop. The world. Oh my God! No, wait. What? Oh no. Stephen King? First of all, thank you for telling me, because I just hover over your Twitter timeline all day long waiting for that next tweet.
I actually love Stephen King's tweets because like they're the ultimate dad joke tweets.
I know.
He's like the archetype of like dad joke dad.
Somehow he manages to what I don't understand about Stephen King's tweets is very confusing to me is he's written some of my favorite books on planet Earth. But his fucking tweets suck ass.
Yeah, they're really
like, I guess it's because it's short form. He's not good at short form. But the tweets are...
They're all just like, Donald Trump, more like Donald shit.
It's these rancid, like, stinky tweets that are like... And it's like, dude, you made Roland of Gilead, the gunslinger. What are you doing?
You are literally one of the most, if not the most, successful writers in human history. And it's for a reason, because he is a phenomenal talent.
Not
a phenomenal writer, but yeah. But Twitter ruins everyone.
Dude, it's just like, I haven't been going on Twitter lately. It's not because of anything other than like, I don't really have... I
got back on after Elon.
It's I revisit it. It's fine. But like...
I get a lot of like, there's just something, I probably exhausted it by this point, but just like, there was just this like glee of me of like getting on Twitter, because like I didn't touch Twitter for years because it was run by the hall monitor class, and it's just like you do a cost benefit analysis, it's not worth it.
You were in trouble many a time.
Well, I was, but then I just stopped tweeting.
Very bad boy.
Yeah, the hall monitors. But there was some glee in like reclaiming the turf for sure.
Dude,
the performative leaving of Twitter is retarded. It also...
Dude, I'm sorry to cut you off.
No.
This just popped in my head, forgive me. Imagine this. You're taking a shit in an airplane bathroom and you look over and someone has written, "I will no longer be graffitiing on this bathroom wall. If you want to see my graffiti, I will be graffitiing in the next stall over."
It's so painful.
Dude.
You know what's even worse, though, that I've been seeing a lot of? The aggressive performative calls to self-care. And what I mean by that is like, we need to look out for each other now, people. We need to all take care of ourselves. Take some time, go take a hot bath and come back for the fight. Yeah. And it's like, so many people are doing this, and they're communists because they all use the royal we. And my response to people who use we for anything is, get your fucking we off me. I didn't consent to your
I didn't consent to your fucking we.
Yeah. But like everyone is, it's like it's like everyone's like a all these people are like little fucking like Fidel Castro tyrants on their own timeline. And I love, like, there's a certain style, there's a certain linguistic style that super lefty, super online people use, where it's like they're giving pronouncements.
Absolutely.
Where it's like it sounds like something nice and sweet, but it's like a dictate. And I don't even mean like cancel culture. I just mean like, like we really need to look at where we're at. We're at as a society. That's kind of a lame example, but it's that kind of tone.
This is what it was. And I honestly feel like I was part of getting rid of this, because I posted, it's so narcissistic to think that, but if I was even a little part of getting rid of this, I'm happy, because I haven't seen it as much. This was the ultimate version of what you're saying. We, clap emoji. Need, clap emoji. To, clap emoji.
It's like nails on a chalk. Nails on a chalk.
More, clap emoji. Baths. Or whatever the fuck. You know what I mean? It was like the clap emoji. You're humiliating yourself by feeling whatever you're saying you think is so ineffective that you need to put cartoon hands clapping in between each fucking word.
Shrill fucking...
What the fuck's wrong with you? The clap emoji was a nightmare. There was a horrible phase where everybody was doing the clap emoji.
That's a true a true nightmare. For
And
sure.
what's really annoying about it is this. It's like I would say there's good times for a clap emoji. Like, for example, if you knew that bombs had been planted in literally everyone's house in America that were about to go off, you need to get the fuck out of your house.
Fire emojis.
Yeah, don't
Red
do
alerts.
don't do clap emoji.
Like, imagine somebody just clapping aggressively in your face. It's about like the worst thing.
Oh, people were doing that. People were actualizing the clap emoji in real life, and they clap in your fucking face. Yeah. It's common. But dude, what's happening right now, as far as the come to Jesus moment, collect.
Are they going to have a come to Jesus moment?
Yeah. Oh,
I don't know.
Dude,
they might just double down.
Nope.
What do you think?
I think we're gonna see. You know, when a fever breaks, right before it breaks, that's what we're seeing. You're gonna see a few more big sweats. But what's happening now is they are hemorrhaging the essentially the cyst that contained within it the population of that particular memescape has popped, and people are leaving it silently, not so silently.
I don't know. There's a fucking lot of people on Blue Sky.
Oh, dude, no. But here's the problem with Blue Sky: the joy of correcting the trolls is gone.
Yeah.
No more trolls. Now what will happen? You got to fall on each other.
Right.
Now you got to attack each other.
That always happens.
And so then what will inevitably happen is the least pure of the Blue Sky recruits will be banned, and they will be forced to.
That's already happening. You know, that's like they're like literally the thing's falling apart because they're getting like 40,000 block requests a day, something like that.
There you go.
It's already happening.
Yeah, there you go. Aside from the swarms of trolls descending on Blue Sky because it's some kind of mark of honor to get banned from Blue Sky.
To be fair, though, like if we want to go out on this route, that's literally how all communist regimes behave, and they seem to be fairly stable, or at least China is at the moment. Russia wasn't, or Soviet Union wasn't. I have a theory. Bear with me. It's a domino, a type of domino theory, if you will, that if we let the communists take Blue Sky, that may spread to other parts of the internet now that they're all. Because see, here's the thing. What's going to be like the thing that's going to happen with Blue Sky could also be like what happened with Poll, where you put all the most extreme people in one place, and it's like sending people to prison. Now they come out hardened.
Oh, yeah.
So that could also happen. So my personal feeling is we need to divert funds from Ukraine to attack Blue Sky before it gets out of hand. And we just need to cut off communism at the head while we have them all in one place.
Well, you know, though, I mean, I think like if you look at like the success of communism, like how are we going to, like, if you and I decided we wanted to bring communism to the world, you know, what I do like about the methods of inducing communism, what I like about it is how insidious it is. I really think that's cool. I like that propagation of it via like a kind of underground. That's super cool. And also I like that it's data driven, right? Like real communism, it involves like, you got to kind of do the pull up of like understanding classism, understanding economics, reading.
Marx had a lot of great ideas.
Absolutely.
He had a lot of stupid ideas too, but he had, like, for instance, class analysis. Yeah. And one of the big issues with America is it denies the reality of class, even though there are obviously classes in America, even if they're a bit more fluid.
That's it.
So
focus on the core.
Yeah.
So like, and what's happening with whatever, if you like whatever this version of some kind of like neo-communism is, that it's not focusing on the core, it's focusing on this kind of like bizarre emphasis on inclusivity and instead of economics. And that's fucking them up real bad.
I would hazard a guess, and I was just watching a documentary on this last night, but I would hazard a guess that, you know, like, because at least as I recall it, I don't know about you, but at least as I recall it, I mean, again, I'm a left-wing person, or at least the old definition of the left. I had a Marxist journalism professor in college who was the Marxist mayor of Santa Cruz, Mike Rockenright. It's like, you know, it's like I studied Marxism in school. I'm not a Marxist. I rejected it because I'm an anarchist. It's like the reason I don't like communism is because it's too statist. I don't
course.
want a fucking state.
That's
you
the
know?
fucking problem with
It's
it.
it's like, wait, so you're saying that, and it's kind of the issue I had with Bernie Sanders. It's like, wait, so you're saying the government is corrupt, so the answer is to give more money to the government. Make that make sense for me. But
well, it's founded on the notion that it like the government dissolves, isn't it? It's like the idea
right,
is
which
that
doesn't happen.
It never will happen.
That's never going to happen.
Isn't that essentially the big malfunction in the whole system? Is that
people are people.
You lean into the notion
you just get you end up with a commissar.
The
class.
regulator,
yeah.
the initial regulation will dissolve because it won't be necessary anymore.
Well, it's like Animal Farm. All animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others.
But there you go.
I love George Orwell. I really do. I think people should revisit his books, even though they're so obvious and they get taught in school.
But wouldn't you say communism and anarchism, they share a kind of humanist idealism in the sense that I think both of them...
They share a certain DNA, but they diverge at the point of
absolutely
of the creation of a state.
Communists hated anarchists.
Yeah, and vice versa. And that's still the case. I think that, and I consider myself a philosophical anarchist still, but that is not the same as saying there shouldn't be any laws, because I'm also a realist. But what was I going to say? Oh, I'm sure you remember, like, around that same time, just this idea of kind of like millennial communism came out of nowhere. Yeah. And all of a sudden people started talking about communism and Marxism again, and like being communist furries and all of that. And that just came out of nowhere. And I would hazard a guess that that's astroturfing by China. And the reason that they're making it, the reason that they made it into this corrosive thing as well, is to destabilize American society and destabilize the youth, which now they're doing with TikTok. But I think that, America has been increasingly in bed with China since the Clinton administration, actually since Nixon. And I think that we've become more aware of Russian influence operations, and now to some extent in the last year we become more aware, I hope, of Iranian influence operations. But I think that the Chinese influence operations are the biggest ones of all, and they're the most subtle and long term.
Dude, okay, so I will send it to you because I can't remember the name, and it sucks for everyone else because I have a cheese brain. But I listened to this wonderful podcast on communism then and now.
Okay.
Oh, it's so good. And I think he did the podcast as a kind of response to the, people talking about the current threat of communism in the world, right? So he was, did this incredible history of American communism and was talking about how it was underground. It wasn't fashionable.
Right.
And if you would have to find the communists, right? You find the communists, you get vetted, I guess, you get gradually brought in, and they would say things to you like, don't quit your job. Become the best at your job. Mm-hmm. Learn everything you can.
We're talking about in the U.S., not Russia.
Yeah, in the U.S.
In what time period?
I will have to send it to you. Okay. I think this was like
50s?
When Ginsburg was writing about it and stuff, right? So the idea was, at least the takeaway I got was, okay, you look at the modern neo-Nazi, right? They show a picture
FBI
of
agents.
Not the fucking FBI agents.
I was on Blue Sky. People were posting pictures of Nazis marching with flags, and there's really ridiculous, stereotypical. They're like, I can't believe these people. They're on the streets. I just posted like, must have been a slow day at the office of the FBI.
Yeah, let's go march. But you look at, the classic neo-Nazi, and generally, and then you just put that next to a picture of like the SS. On one side, you inevitably have someone who's disheveled, clearly not disciplined, clearly foggy. And on the other side, you have a mind-controlled, super trained agent of the fucking state, a deadly killer. That's the scary Nazi versus the neo-Nazi, which seems to lack a lot of the discipline of the actual thing itself. Okay. So I would say if we look at the modern communist versus the originator communists, the revolutionary communists, right. The revolutionary communists was fucking scary. They would die. They were really up for the revolution, and they were actively trying to stabilize society by any means possible to bring about the communist revolution.
Right.
And they were fucking scary. I don't get that from the modern communists.
I don't get that from modern communists, but I certainly get that from Chinese agents in the U.S. who are here stealing information from research institutes.
Sure, but
I get that from TikTok, right?
But
people running TikTok.
But the problem is they're running in head first into capitalism.
Right.
And they're not just running into capitalism, they're running into like absolute hedonism. And also the way they got to where they're at was not from a culture of hedonism and abundance. For the fucking communist that revolution to happen, shit was fucked up. In the same way that for the SS to come to power, shit was fucked up in Germany.
Right.
How the fuck do you actually execute real communism in a hedonic, relatively abundant society? All you're going to get is a bunch of clap emojis from a furry.
Right.
You're not going to get the real fucking thing. And then that thing is going to run head first into free speech.
Well, we're going to have to dig into some dodgy right-wing theories here, but the issue, the idea with the communists figured this out in America in the 50s with people like the Rosenbergs who stole nuclear secrets, and they realized that exactly what you're saying. You're never going to have a communist revolution in America because it's against the American DNA, and people, first of all, don't have class consciousness here. And America, since the inception of the country, the idea has been pull yourself up by your bootstraps. If you're poor, it's your fault, which is totally contrary to Europe, where when you're born in a class, you're stuck there.
Right.
And you're often held there by your own class that doesn't want you to leave.
Right.
Right. And which you see, for instance, in England very, very clearly. But they realized that the way that they would have to do it was by the long march through the institutions, by infiltrating the culture and turning people, making, essentially very much preying on the pre-existing, as the CCP does now, preying on the pre-existing divisions in America of like race, gender, all of that. And so hence the cultural Marxism theory. Now, this is a right wing. So again, I caveat, because you hear people talking about cultural Marxism, including Jordan Peterson, and what they never tell you is the inception of the original term cultural Marxism is not what I'm talking about currently, but it's a recension of the idea of cultural Bolshevism, which was created by Alfred Rosenberg under Hitler. It was Nazi propaganda.
No shit.
So this whole cultural Marxist idea, while it does have some analytic validity, I think, is also a stealth Nazi thing.
Whoa.
So we have to be careful about, because when the Nazis said cultural Bolsheviks, they meant Jews. And they said that Jews everywhere are like secret fifth columnists for communists.
Fuck.
So this is one of the reasons why people are like, why do you hate Jordan Peterson so much? I don't hate Jordan Peterson, but it's like people need to understand that like there are deeper levels of the things that he's pointing out.
Would you have him on your podcast?
I would absolutely.
You guys would have the best conversation.
Absolutely. Yeah. I've softened on Jordan a bit. I don't think he's malevolent as I used to.
He's not malevolent.
He's not malevolent, but I think I will say this.
I'm mad at him. He's a sweetie.
I'm sure he is. I'll say this is, and I would say this to him too. I try to make it a point, if I'm going to say a critique about somebody, to not say anything I wouldn't say to them in person. Then again, I can be pretty rude in person, but my critique of not current Jordan Peterson, but like when his book first came out, is everything in that 12 Rules for Life book is like spot on, great advice, particularly that young men need to hear. I think that he does a lot of, particularly young men feel so alone, so lost, so adrift, so fatherless.
Yeah.
We're lucky to have him in that regard. He does a lot of good in people's lives. But you get through 12 Rules for Life and you get through all the stories about, suffering and all this, and it really gets to you. And, I would have benefited from that book a lot if I'd read it when I was 25 or 22. But then about like 2/3 of the way through, we get to, and the people that are responsible for things, and you can blame a certain group of people for why things are this way. It's not just a universal condition of suffering. It's the cultural Marxists. Well, cultural Marxism, this is an idea that's been pushed on the right a long time. It's been pushed by people like Pat Buchanan, who is extremely right-wing. But if you trace it all the way back, go back, and all you have to do to see this, you can look at the Wikipedia for Alfred Rosenberg, who wrote this really nutty book called The Myth of the 20th Century, which was kind of the official dogma of the Nazi Party, where he says the exact same argument. Cultural Bolsheviks are everywhere, and what they meant was Jews, and we need to kill them. And that's just historical fact. It's not my opinion.
Uh-huh.
That's what happened. That was part of the Nazi propaganda machine. And people like Pat Buchanan, who came out and brought this idea of cultural Marxism, while there is, I think, descriptive validity to it, and there was a Frankfurt School, and there is a long march through the institutions, and I don't think that Marxism is good, and I don't think that communism is good, and I don't think that having tenured radical professors like Angela Davis, who was a professor at the school I went to, is a good idea, or Bill Ayers, who was a terrorist for the Weather Underground, or Bernadette Dorn. These people should not be in tenured positions. At the same time, we have to be careful and look at the other side and say, the reason the Nazis came to power is they said, we will protect you from the communists, because they'd had a communist revolution in Bavaria during World War I at the same time. But they basically, what the Nazis said is like, communism is coming through Eastern Europe. They thought Jews had created it. Lenin, I guess, Jewish, Karl Marx, Jewish. So therefore, all Jewish people in Germany, who were some of the most patriotic, hardworking, productive members of society, suddenly get called fifth columnists for communism or American capitalism. Right. And then what happened. So we have to be careful with that. But at the same time,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, but people need to be aware of that. But at the same time, the critique does have validity in that there was a Marxist, and there still is, an attempt to infiltrate American culture through to get communism into America through the culture instead of through the old like fighting for inbred lines. And you get things like what's Arthur Miller, The Air-Conditioned Nightmare, all this art that shows American life is fundamentally hollow, points out the contradictions, exacerbations of race conflicts. A lot of the art that we grew up with, everything that seems to be attacking the system, it's like, well, I think about it similarly to, you have to look at the big context where it's like, I think, like, for instance, in Germany in the 70s, they had the Baader-Meinhof gang, who seemed to be like cool left-wing Antifa terrorists. And they're often pointed to as kind of like leftist paragons, perhaps, of leftist extremism. But they were always considered cool. They had a certain subcultural cachet. But no one ever mentioned that West Germany was next to East Germany. These were clearly communist agents from the Soviet Union blowing shit up in Berlin. They're not individual actors. They're not just angry students. They're not just, it's astroturfed. It's created by foreign powers.
Well, it's not.
And that's happening here. We do that. We do that in China, and they do it here. So.
Right. Well, I mean, the way I look at it is this. To go back to what we were talking about earlier, and I really believe this, not in some kind of stupid messianic way, but I think any individual naturally thinks about the betterment of their world, the communities around them, and should not be afraid of any data set if that's the intent, right? So I think we have all these wonderful data sets out there, Marxism, anarchism, Buddhism, whatever the ism may fucking be. And not just that, but the transmission mechanism of these particular data sets, particularly the subversive ones, are very interesting to me. And looking at, if we do, let's imagine, I don't think you're wrong. I mean, I know that there is inevitably like an active push to topple capitalism because it's seen as a kind of horrific grinding machine that you land in the wrong gear and you're out in the fucking streets. It's horror beyond, it's incomprehensible. I'm saying from their perspective, it's meaning their attempt to instill communism is not what Sean Hannity would say it was, which was some kind of sociopathic attempt to gain power and control people's minds. But on the ground, operators have analyzed the data, and if their assessment is, this is not the way we should be running things right now. This is fucking people up. It's completely fucked, and there's got to be a better way to do this. What I mean is, there's the real ones have legitimate passion for
they're absolutely
for
they're
help,
shock troops
for helping.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Now the problem, of course, is that the way that they want to induce this better world is through deception, aggression, violence, and inevitably trickery.
Well, you also get, you can see this with like student radicals who, it's like, yeah, you should be a radical when you're a student. That's the time for it. But you see this with student radicals who get drawn into, communism, social, what by any other name. And it's never them. There's always like professional adults around who are like career activists who are, often, I mean, there's basically like child predators, right? Who are going and inciting, and because it's so easy to turn the altruism and the natural altruism and idealism of young people and their need to look for new ideas now that they left their parents' house into something that does not serve their interests. Let's put it that way.
Let me tell you, man, if I was a communist, which I'm not, and I wanted to spread communism,
That is what you would say.
For all the communists out there, you know what I would do? I would stop this bullshit. I think you've got a pretty good data set out there. I'm not saying that. I'm saying the method of implementing this bullshit is not working. But you've got a pretty good data set out there, and you've got a lot of quantifiable data out there that I think could be quite convincing. Again, let me reiterate, I'm not a communist. I'm literally not a communist. I'm just saying it's fun to think about subversive mechanisms of like...
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
So I think...
I run a sideline in subversion myself just for other things.
Let's go deeper into the problem here. The problem here is exploitation. The problem is that what we're doing is vampirizing life energy. It's a parasitic relationship between the workers and the board, between the CEO and the workers. Infinite layoffs, and then the CEO gets a bonus of $1 billion or whatever. Like, you clearly, the data is there. This seems fucked up.
Nobody can like get away from the fact that like while corporate CEO salaries and stock market have gone through the roof, wages have remained largely static.
There you go. This is
like
bullshit.
There you go. It's like you can't argue.
Minimum wage is not going up.
Right.
So okay. So there's enough data out there. I don't think you need to be tricky with it at all. I think you just show that data to people, and I think that might spark something within them that would lead you closer to where you want to be. But really, I think ultimately, and this is true for any kind of utopian vision. Like right now, we've talked about it. You see this all the time. It's really interesting to me too. A leftist will post, "I will now never own a house. I will never have a house," right? So it's interesting.
In a good way or a bad way? In
a bad way. They want the house. And so what you're seeing there is really fascinating in the sense that the value, the story is, you need a house, then you'll be happy. You read some Emerson. Read what he has to say about a fucking house.
Well, Emerson's mom paid for him that whole time he was out on that lake.
I'm glad.
And doing his laundry. Probably.
I'm glad she
Thanks,
did.
Mom.
I'm glad. Thank you, Emerson's mom.
Yeah.
But
same with Marx, actually.
Because these motherfuckers are funded by their parents, it's still, you have to look at the data itself. My favorite Emerson essay about home ownership is, he's like, when you are jealous over someone for their house, imagine that house chained to their neck and they're dragging it down the road.
That's called a mortgage. Yeah.
Bingo.
Yeah.
And so so to me, like, the way, if you wanted to do something truly disruptive to capitalism or to all economic systems that are exploitive on planet Earth, it's a way of articulating true value that isn't capitalist propaganda. True value. I'm saying true value. What is true value? And this is where it gets really interesting. People don't want a house. They want the feeling of having a house. They don't want the
No,
nice.
I want an actual house because I want to be able to tell people to fuck off if I want to.
Dude, I'm telling you, if there was a drug, a substance, a method of meditation that
Here's the thing though, the feeling of getting a house has a very strong correlation. The feeling of having a house has a very strong correlation to having a house.
Dude, I'm telling you, the feeling of having a house is actually the feeling of security. People want to feel secure and safe in their own world. And a lot of
But security that they have control over, I think, is
security
important.
they have control over. This is what we want. We want to feel homeostasis, baby. And a lot of the capitalist propaganda, and by that I mean commercials, are based on planting the idea.
Creating desires where there were none.
There you
go.
Theoretically, if people could find a way to feel safe and secure regardless of the material stuff around them. I can't do it. I'm proposing a thing I can't do.
You will own nothing and you will be happy.
No, dude, that motherfucker, that creepy motherfucker, when he said
Schwab,
when he said that,
the High Lord of Saturn or whatever the fuck,
dude, when he said that, I don't think he knew that he was actually giving a real instruction in how to overthrow the entire system, because the entire system depends on you believing if you fill in the blank with X, whether it's a political situation, a material situation, that's when you're going to feel okay. I think the whole fucking economy would immediately crash. Like if I could snap my fingers and at a planetary level, everyone could feel at peace.
Being happy with being grateful with and being happy with what you have is a gigantic fuck you to the system.
No one's going to Target if they're
then you're not
Nirvana.
Because then you're not. That's why the thing is, one of the things about meditation is when you get really good at it, you don't want anything else. You don't want anything else. Because it's almost dangerous. It's kind of dangerous in a capitalist society because you still got to pay your bills. You're sitting on the mat not giving a fuck, so but this is why the hardcore meditators in India wander around naked, so they don't need anything with a begging bowl. But
and by the way, you could still pay your fucking bills, but when you're this is what Ram Dass would always say, like, you can like get enlightened, you still need to know your fucking credit card number.
Yeah.
So it's like, this is the balancing place. But
this is, and I do want to interject this. I think America now is the best time in world history to do spiritual practice.
Hell yeah, it's great.
Period.
Find a way, no matter.
And that's why I will always support. One of the reasons why I hate communism. One word, Tibet. Look what China did to Tibet. You cannot be spiritual under communism. You can't even be Christian under communism.
Dude, they were incinerating monks.
Yeah, forget it. Anybody who's interested in like this, like I know most people who are interested in alternative spirituality are leftists. Think for 2 seconds. Like, we all want to help people. We're all compassionate. But when you look at in world historical terms, you don't want communism or fascism because you can't, like Hitler, despite having like a cult, he appropriated occult symbolism. He threw all the occultists and Freemasons into concentration camps. Karl Germer, who was the head of the OTO, was thrown into a concentration camp and raped by guards in prison. So it's like, and we don't even want to get started with Tibet or Falun Gong in China, where they're harvesting their organs for doing Tai Chi. It's insanity.
Listen, we
don't want that.
This is, Trump has said this, and I've probably said it before we've podcast.
Capitalism will at least sell you spirituality.
Trump has said, if you really want to bring harmony into the world, don't worry about whatever your ism is. Bring peace to your family. That's the recipe right there. If you can't find a way to bridge the gap in your own family, or at least have a separate peace in that situation, then how the fuck does anything you have to say about the world matter? And I don't mean you have to spawn to do this. I'm saying your community, your family, those around you. Bring peace to the cluster you're in. Look at it like this. You are in deep cover, baby. You just came to. You're wearing the clothes of a human being in late stage capitalism. You find yourself surrounded by other amnesic operators, many of them in deep cover. They need you to wake them up, baby. Get them awake. And the way you wake them up is not by shaking them awake. It's by waking yourself up, and
Yeah.
then they see that.
By being an example.
Hell yeah. And then it naturally, theoretically, go ahead and do your other shit. But if you're inside disrupted, terrified, angry, neurotic, freaked out, and most importantly, controlled by the system via fear of the system, then you are not liberated at all. You are still a vassal of the state.
This system is great if you work with it and within its parameters. There's so much leeway for reconfiguration to your will. And that you know, we should start a new political party that's like 80s Republicans, but it's like strong family values, but instead of Christianity, it's like and balance your chakras. It's like new age family values.
It's well, what I mean when people talk about family values, another co-opted fucking term, which is really annoying. The only family value that matters is love. That's it. That's it. You could have all the fucking values in your want in your family, but if there's no love there, who gives a fuck? It's like digging up a corpse and marionetting it around.
Yeah, and having thought, like, I would far rather, not just far rather, without hesitation, I would prefer to be born in a poor family with people, maybe even in dire straits, family of people where I knew people loved me, rather than a rich family where I was considered a possession.
There you
just
go.
Like there's no love.
There you go.
Love, nothing will replace love.
So that's to me. Oh God,
because you can't. You can't live without it.
This is the next step, man. This is the next step. For those of you banished into your own self-banished corner of the fucking blue sky, figure out a way to start loving the people that you are currently afraid of and hate. And for the people gloating, figure out a way to love those poor blue sky babies. That's the first step. And then I know I gotta go, but I have to say this. I'm sorry for calling you out. I noticed that in front of your house, there's not an "in this house" sign. So I
should make my own. In this house, we believe that it is the Aeon of Horus, that Cthulhu is coming back, that we will all die, and that our lives are meaningless in an uncaring universe, that we will all die in suffering and agony alone, that there was no point, that there is no Messiah, there is nothing but suffering forever, and as soon as you rectify yourself to that, at least you'll suffer a little bit less, but you'll still suffer.
That's a big sign. Too many words. You got to break it down into like 4
In this house, we
sentences.
believe in suffering.
Ooh, dude, I'm telling you, for real. And I'm sorry that as an idiot stoner, I'm even giving any kind of advice to how to bring world peace, because I'm a dummy and I'm neurotic. And much of what I say is just, I wish I could do this. But truly, the pathway to world peace, for those of you somehow still watching, if we can get over 50% of the population to put an "in this house" sign in front of their house, there will be world peace, and I'm certain of it.
I saw recently that apparently that sign has the exact same diction and phrasing as the Catholic Catechism of "we believe in
my God,
true
that's
God,"
so
and what,
crazy.
take it for what it.
Dude, you know what? Actually, I would buy like a digital marquee, because in this house, the things we believe, like, it changes all the time. You know what I mean? So I get updated, or we no longer believe.
Yeah.
In this house, we used to believe science is science. Now we're not so sure.
God, those signs are obnoxious.
Oh, they're the worst. They're the hemorrhoids of modernity.
God, do people still put those on?
Oh yeah, baby. Oh yeah. They're out. And they're out. They're all over the fucking place.
You know, it's like call me crazy, but it's almost like people don't like being nagged.
I mean, if you have a nag fetish, dude,
Unless you have a nag.
You're in heaven right now. You're like in a world where like high heels were mandated by the state.
No comment.
Dude, you're the best.
So are you. That was good. That was a good hang. That was a good podcast.
I love hanging out.
What do you want to leave anyone with, any calls to action or anything? You want to tell people about current projects?
I got a podcast, Duncan Trussell Family Hour.
You might have heard of it. Yeah.
That's it.
It's a pretty good podcast.
That's all.
All right. Are you doing YouTube now?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, real quick. And I won't bore you with this. But I would love for you to participate in something called Project Beast Blast. Here's the synopsis. Here's what we're doing. And a lot of people are working on this. my goal is to get as many subscribers as Mr. Beast. This will make me an instant, like, near billionaire. Now, hear me out. That's not why I'm doing it. The money means nothing to me. I'm doing it because once I get as many subscribers as Mr. Beast, and I'm already in negotiations, I have people working in Egypt right now. I'm buying the Great Pyramid of Giza. I'm going to take the top off. I'm filling it with Mentos. And we're going to dump Diet Coke into that motherfucker and blow it up. I have physicists who've looked into this for me. It will blow. The explosion will be insane. We're having a music festival. There will be like Teflon steel nets around because the pyramid bricks could definitely kill people. So it will be safe, a safe zone. And if you want to participate in Project Beast Blast, subscribe at Duncan Trussell on YouTube. We will take out the Great Pyramid. And finally, that's not the end of the project. The final phase is we are going to do a Jenga competition with the Stonehenge megalith. Me and Mr. Beast.
Okay.
Whoever wins, or whoever loses rather, has to delete their YouTube. And guess what I have at my house? Scale Stonehenge replicas that I've been practicing Jenga on. I'm learning how to use an excavator and a crane. So I will win. And we will defeat Mr. Beast.
Did you know that there's actually a replica of Stonehenge west of Austin?
Is there really?
There is. You can go practice there too.
That is definitely something you would know.
I just saw it randomly, but because I was looking for places to drive to, but look into it.
Going.
Yeah, we should go. We should do a platinum video YouTube there. My goal is to be Mr. Great Beast on YouTube.
I think you already are.
I got to do more videos though.
You're not on YouTube? This is on YouTube?
This is on YouTube, yeah, but people will like this video.
Dude, you didn't even say a thing. Please like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe. It's like a radio. You should do a shout out to like and subscribe to my channel.
Please like and subscribe to Jason Louve's wonderful podcast. It manipulates the algorithm in our favor. And we are actively working together to get rid of all the fucking pyramids, which theoretically I think are causing most of the problems in the world. We won't know till we get rid of them. But I'm pretty sure you get rid of those fucking things and it's...
You know how you know they're causing the problems? Because they claim that we don't know how they were made.
Bingo.
Like, what?
Bingo.
That doesn't set off any alarm bells.
And who fucking cares? That's great real estate. Let's get rid of those things. I wouldn't want to live.
Can we bury Mr. Beast alive in the Great Pyramid?
We're not. No, listen, we're doing no, and you can't say that on YouTube. We're doing no violence or anything toward that. Mr. Beast sends me chocolate.
What I think we should do is invade countries and then give them away to people on YouTube. Like you can have Dominica, or you can have French Guyana.
That's a great idea.
Wouldn't you like French Guyana?
I would. I'm sure anybody would.
I think Jonestown happened there, so they're already.
So it's already like a tourist destination.
Yeah, exactly. YouTube riches await.
We'll get there.
All right.